and other such diseases. My three best friends died of breast cancer. I got angry, and with a group of wonderful people, we developed and organized Crew to Pink, which is a 501c3 organization. Our goal is to raise money locally for the breast cancer research at Tulane Cancer Center. We have 3 events a year, but one of the events, Death by Chocolate, not breast cancer, is held at Shane Mansion, also known as Shane Funeral Home. And the survivors that we pick each year are honored at that event. Lena Stewart is one of those. They are here with me today, and I'm so proud of them, pleased that they're with me, with us. They're remarkable women. I wish you could meet and personally get to know them each because they're incredible. The reason we work so hard, we are all volunteers, and most of us also have full-time jobs. The reason we work so hard is to try to make a difference that we won't have to face this in the future. So therefore, our money, our efforts, our prayers, our passion goes to the research at Tulane Cancer Center. And with me is Dr. Burrow.
Dr. Burrow.
Thank you all for the honor to speak with you today. And I want to thank the fellow panelists for a deep discussion about breast cancer and its impact to the community in New Orleans. This is my first city council meeting, so I really wasn't sure what to expect, but y'all had a band, and I think the NOLA love kind of made me rethink what I was going to say, because it started off with a very deep but ultimately hopeful message. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about, was the hope in breast cancer through research. So by introduction, I'm Matt Burrow. I'm an associate professor and assistant chair in the Department of Medicine at Tulane. I'm a Louisiana resident, born in Slidell. I'm sorry, I didn't have any control to be born in NOLA, but I've been here my whole life. I've been at Tulane since 1994. My whole career in research has been on breast cancer. My wife, also a Louisiana resident, is an MD PhD. She also is a Tulanean, and she's the breast oncologist at Tulane. And we have a lab together, and we've done research focused almost exclusively on breast cancer for our careers. The message that's resonating from the fellow panelists is breast cancer is a disease of disparity, especially here in New Orleans. And we can address that clinically, and we need to. But we also need to address the disease as a whole and address the disparity through research. That's things like clinical trials to address that. That's things like systems and research in preclinical models to address breast cancer, to find not only new drugs and new targets, but also personalized medicine. The potential that an individual's tumor can be identified, analyzed, and can predict what that person's tumor is going to respond to save a life. I'm not just representing Tulane, I'm representing LSU, I'm representing Xavier, I'm representing other academics in New Orleans, because I've collaborated with all these people. There are strong research at those institutions at Ochsner. I also want to highlight the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Something that was said here, we talk about the environment, we talk about diet, we talk about health beyond just when the person's diagnosed. In City Park, we have a 40-acre facility, U.S. Department of Agriculture Southern Regional Research Center. My lab has a cooperative agreement with them to explore how they're looking at diet, adjusting diet, understanding diet, and our end, how that can impact breast cancer, how we can prevent it, and how can we maybe change some of the factors that make it worse. So I've got this little Crew to Pink brochure. I printed not enough, but Lauren is going to have them emailed to you all, so you'll see. This talks about the research that's going on in our lab, a lot of which is supported by Crew to Pink. I can't emphasize enough how much this grassroots organization and how much others in New Orleans focused on raising funds to support breast cancer research, the impact that they've had. They've allowed us to try to address health disparities by reaching out through the LCRC, the Louisiana Cancer Research Consortium's Biospecimen Board, to establish patient-derived organoids, patient-derived xenograft models that allow us to test the role of disparity and race have on breast cancer. Their funding has allowed us to do pilot studies that you can't do with big grants, because you can't get the big grants to do. So their funding has actually allowed us to secure an NIH grant that just started in September to develop drugs, therapeutics that target a specific family of kinases. That's also in here. Molecules that signal in the breast cancer to drive those tumors. That's over $1 million in a 4-year grant. So, yeah, y'all are great. So anyway, but I think I want to highlight something else. Louisiana Cancer Research Consortium is bringing together not only Tulane and LSU and Xavier and Ochsner, but reaching out clinically to create a platform. And I'm hoping at some point you all get to speak with Joe Ramos, who's the new LCRC director. So he was recently brought in. He's been here about 2 months to help build a cancer research consortium to go for CCC at the NCI level. There's a lot of other breast cancer researchers at Tulane and LSU besides myself. I'm not sure what more I can say. I could probably go on, but well, for the next 3 hours, what I'd like to talk about is, no, I didn't bring my slide deck. But this is I think what's great about the New Orleans community is this collaboration, this interaction, and I've been here my whole life. I'm not going anywhere, and I think I want to come back to the goal of love. There's a dogma in breast cancer and other cancer types called the metastatic line. That is, when a patient's disease has progressed outside the breast, that patient is treatable but not curable. That dogma is ingrained in the researchers and the physicians' minds. When I saw the hope out here with these kids, my hope is that maybe my research will have an impact. Maybe my research will inspire somebody else, but maybe as a mentor, as a researcher, I can inspire one of these kids to become the next physician, the next physician scientist, the next PhD that does break that dogma, that takes that line down and says, you have breast cancer, it doesn't matter, we're going to cure it. So I'll end with that. Otherwise, I'll just keep going on all day.
If I may,
Thank you, Dr. Burrow. Ms. Carroll.
I don't know if you've heard the song "I Run for Life" by Melissa Etheridge. It really speaks to us as survivors. And the chorus goes, I run for hope, I run to feel, I run for the truth, for all that is real. I run for your mother, your daughter, your sister, your wife. I run for you and me, my friend. I run for life. And that is what Crew to Pink is dedicated to do.
Thank you to all of our panelists. And that's absolutely. I was talking to Sharon Carter Sheridan earlier. We were sharing about that first city council meeting decades ago when we didn't have this level of fanfare. We didn't have this level of notoriety or even interest in many cases. When she sat before this council, this body, with a few women to talk about this dreaded disease. And in talking to her earlier, she had tears in her eyes thinking that maybe finally, as a survivor, decades later, not only do we get it, but that people understand that it's something that it can be prevented. So thank you guys. And now our council colleagues, Councilmember Jerusalem.
Well, first, I just want to say thank you to everybody to be here. And I think it's just so important to keep on impressing the messages that you keep on making. What I feel like I keep on hearing is certain themes emerging, both in physical and mental health, which is, Dr. Stewart, you talked about family secrets become secrets. And the fact that we don't talk about this publicly or enough is a problem. I've heard the word disparity used a number of times, particularly in this city. How do we make sure that we deal with that? My wife's aunt died of breast cancer, so now she gets tested more as a result of that. You talked about Ashkenazi Jews, as somebody who's Jewish, realizing that there's certain diseases that our community have to face. I think it's important for us, and as we talk about whether it's gun violence, whether it's breast cancer awareness, that we recognize two things. One, that we have to consistently shine spotlight on them. and make sure that people know what the issues are. And then two, really recognize where the disparities exist and then how we're trying to fill those gaps. I think a lot of times it's easy to sweep it under a rug and say it's not my problem, but it's all of our problem. And if we want healthier cities and better outcomes, then how are we using our resources to get to those places? So I appreciate the fact of your commitment to doing this. And I realize some of you, like Dr. Rubion, have been here so many times, but it's important to keep on coming back. Sometimes, like in anything, just like the reminders and the basics are so important and so necessary and needed. So thank you all for being here, and thank you for continuing to press forward, and thank you for the research too. I think for all of us, you look at certain things and diseases and treatments that have changed and gotten better over the years, and the only way that it does it is here. And I know that you have MD Anderson and other places that are leaders, but it's nice to see that New Orleans is being a leader in this area as well. So thank you all. Thank you all so much for all of your work and for your message today.
Councilmember Harris.
I also want to thank you. Listen, my mother had breast cancer. I have aunts who had breast cancer. I remember turning 40 and being like, I don't want to go get screened, right? I also thought, I don't want to get my boobs squished hard. There's a pain factor that we need to educate people on. I was happy, Dr. McKinney, when he talked about 25 years and older and identifying that line that can fall. If you're 40, you might be at risk, but if you're 25 and have these risk factors, you might be eligible for early screening. And I think that's something that people need to know about and learn about, and that we need to highlight. I always cry at these meetings. always. I think I also want to talk about environmental disparities. We have folks from Gordon Plaza who are here who come all the time and they're waving their hands. Here, look, how many people from Gordon Plaza had breast cancer? So as we talk about environmental factors and shining a light on not only environmental, meaning the land that we live on, but the food that we eat, the nutrition deserts that we have here in New Orleans, and solving for people being able to get healthy, wholesome food and not relying on Cheetos and Doritos and all the things that are good to eat, to taste, but aren't necessarily good for our bodies. So whatever that I can do as a council person while I'm here, as I cry, to help shine a light on these issues, I'm happy to do so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Moreno.
Thank you, Councilmember Thomas. Great to see all of you again. And thank you to Ms. Lena Stewart. Thank you, Ms. Lena, for always prioritizing this event and doing such a great job and putting it together for us every single year so that we can celebrate survivors, but also talk about this very important issue that does need, constant conversation. And we do need to constantly be repeating some things, including the fact of how important screenings are. And I say this every year, but I'm going to say it again. We walk around as women, wanting to do it all, right? And we are, so busy all the time trying to take care of our families, trying to take care of work, trying to do it all the time. And we always think we're too busy, but this is something you must make time for. And I think the other key piece too that is so important to talk about is what you spoke about, sir, is that this is a disease of disparity. The stats that I have show that Black women in the US are about 40% more likely to die from breast cancer than white women. That's, yes. And Dr. Rubion McLean, I don't know how long we've been working together now, but it's been.
Name has changed from Johnson to McLean.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So great to see you again. But on the disparity piece, let me explain. How I first met Denise, who I just call her Denise, even though she's Dr. Rubion, still Dr. Rubion Johnson. It was roughly 2011, 2012, right. And there was a former governor who was trying to cut out our community clinics.
Right.
There was a point when he wanted to eliminate the breast cancer program. that Dr. Rubion Johnson was operating, which mostly helped Black low-income women. And that was something that myself and Senator Diana Bajwa would not stand for. And so we ensured that your program kept on going. But I think that also shows to, sometimes with some leaders of how they don't prioritize people who are poor, people who are Black or Latino. And so that's why we have to push so much harder to make sure programs like that are funded and are prioritized, and that there is access for everyone to seek this type of care, whether it's screenings or once you have been diagnosed for treatment. And so I just want to thank all of you all so much for all the work that you do. Keep up the fight. You have partners with this city council. Like I said, we've been in this for a long time.
Long
A
time.
long time. And we'll keep at it for a long time. But just once again, please, to the women who may be listening, who constantly are saying, I need to make that appointment. I'll make it next week. I'll make it next week. I'll make it next week. Call today. Make it now. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Councilmember Royale.
I'd like to begin by thanking Ms. Lena Stewart. She'll get a lot of that today. As you may recall, this program began with my mom when she was on the council years ago when Ms. Stewart was her chief of staff. And I remember being an unpaid intern doing work on this then. And oftentimes I still feel like an unpaid intern doing work on it now, because we know who the boss is when it comes to this particular program. I want to echo some of the things that the council president said. In the legislature, in our time there, we have a very unusual budget in the state of Louisiana, and that the only two things that we have discretion over in the budget in a $32 to $36 billion budget is healthcare and education. Those are the only two things we can cut. And every year, without fail, up until Governor Edwards became Governor Edwards, we dealt with the fact that the legislature always intended and worked to cut resources to poor people. And in particular, what was very offensive about then Governor Jindal was that he was a former secretary of the Louisiana Department of Health. He knew how much money and how many lives were saved by programs like what Dr. Denise was doing. And to save $5 and to push tax cuts to the wealthy, he was willing to put every Black woman's life at risk.
That's right.
And I sincerely appreciate the work of Senator Bajwa, then Representative Moreno, as well as you, Dr. Denise, on bringing to light what was going down and shaming the legislature into doing the right thing. I'd also like to highlight, because we can't not mention the fact that with Governor Edwards, with President Obama, and with the Affordable Care Act, these are things that have had a direct beneficial effect on outcomes. Because there was a very long time when you have poor people trying to look at how they're going to afford their care, they would not go to a doctor. They would not go pursue any kind of a preemptive care because they were terrified they could not afford it. And it's amazing that we're at a point in our lives where now it's us just trying to tell them to do it versus us trying to tell them to do it and trying to find the money, because healthcare was so unaffordable at that time. It's still expensive, but it's possible now to do it. And I can tell you we have a history of all types of cancer in my family. And even though I came from a family where we didn't have any secrets when it came to healthcare, it is so important for people to talk, because if you're dealing with breast cancer, colon cancer, thyroid cancer, if you're not talking about your family history, if you're not talking about how soon you need to begin screening, then even the most educated, well-to-do person, if they don't know their family history and know when that screening should start, by the time they catch it, it could be too late. So we appreciate y'all being here today, sharing all the information, helping us educate people, because though it is very inconvenient in the middle of your day to schedule a preemptive appointment for something you don't think you have, it could be what saves your life and saves the heartache of your family. So thank you.
Councilmember Green.
I'd like to thank you all also for being here today and for our breast cancer survivors and those who are motivated to want to address this very serious disease. I appreciate the fact that you all are here, that you're watching us today, and that you're active in the community, making sure that we make a difference. I've been a member of the Saint Church for 61 years. It's Bethany Church in Pontchartrain Park. And it's interesting for me to remember over those years how many members we've lost, and some we've lost to breast cancer, but how casually it was talked about decades ago. Oh, she died from breast cancer. There was no discussion of the screenings as there is today. There was not as much outreach as there is today. And members of my family have unfortunately suffered under the disease. It's important to continue, and thank you, Ms. Lena Stewart, for continuing this discussion, which needs to be held every day, but I'm glad it's held here at the council at least once annually, but it really needs to be discussed every day. A lot has changed for the better. A lot has changed because people have access more to resources and also to programs, including the Affordable Care Act, as was brought up previously, and also sometimes financial resources and also just knowledge. But we can't talk about the disease enough. There's no way to talk about it in the manner that we should, which is an everyday thing. I have a daughter, I have a wife, my relatives, I encourage them to recognize the severity of not only breast cancer, but prostate cancer, which a lot of men miss for a variety of reasons. But to give you an example of how important it is to do the regular screenings and to have the discussion, 4 weeks ago, the Urban League had a healthcare event at the convention center. It was called the Big Event, and it provided screenings to those who were interested. I got cholesterol screening and others. And but one woman found out that she had breast cancer because she decided to come to the Urban League Big Event. If that training hadn't existed, if there hadn't been enough discussion about what was going on that day, she might have skipped that event and then not have recognized that she had breast cancer, and who knows how long it would have been. Men need to take that seriously too, relative to not only breast cancer, but prostate cancer. I'm one of those who, unfortunately, since Hurricane Katrina was so neglectful in terms of my health care, that I found out afterwards something that I should have been able to take care of by having an annual visit. For example, it's not embarrassing to talk about, I have an enlarged prostate. Might not have done something about it if I hadn't been told by someone else. And isn't that a funny thing? I consider myself pretty well educated and pretty experienced, told by somebody else that you should go to the doctor and have a digital rectal exam. And I did it and found out that maybe I stopped myself from having prostate cancer later on. So I emphasize that and just use my example as a point to help to emphasize the importance of testing and the importance of what you do and others do in our community to emphasize to us how important not only is the testing is, but the sharing of information. So once again, can't be said enough. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for the survivors and for those who are interested in combating this disease and other very serious diseases. And let us continue to test and let us continue to share that information with the public to help our community become a healthier one. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Green. I also want to thank all of our colleagues and all of the panelists. You know, Dr. Johnson, we've had this discussion on the Good Morning Show.
Yes, we have.
And thank you to Equity Media and all the media outlets that highlight the experts in this area to have this public discussion, because we haven't talked about it for very long. And for also for highlighting the disparity. I think Councilmember Harris was so perfect in talking about the environment, nutrition, and then family history. But I also believe God didn't make any mistakes, because we have members of Gordon Plaza who have been talking about cancer and breast cancer and the effects of environmental racism and medical racism. And I see my uncle in the audience, and I think about Aunt Betty. But I also go back to my uncle and my mother's oldest sister, Geraldine Iganabrusti. And maybe somebody can see from the outside of a Black family, a Black Ninth Ward family, maybe you can look at the disparity. But when you see it from the inside, when you know part of your summers are spent out of Old Gentilly Road, and you wonder why Auntie Jerry's skin color is gray and yellowish and green. And when you think about, but every summer, you know, Old Gentilly Road, that's where we went, you know, it's where we went on the nature trails, and that's where we went out in the woods, because, you know, we were lower night walk people, we were in the city. Why she couldn't get up that day, why she couldn't cook breakfast that day. But then the other thing was, why wasn't there some treatment? Why wasn't there a place that's this little Black woman who was my aunt? Why wasn't there somewhere she could go? Why wasn't the disparity in medical racism addressed in that Black family? And let me say this to folk, right? I was 8, 9 years old. I remember watching her suffer. Cancer don't play. And as you revisit those memories, you can see her twisted and mangled and hurting. And then one day she was gone. There was no medical intervention, no chemotherapy, no advanced study, no clinical trials, no one to rush in and save the day. We went from watching her change colors to not getting up to gone. So for you all, we have some new heroes now. That maybe we won't stop people from dying, but then maybe we will. Then maybe those 40+% Black women, not only will they not die, but that they'll help prevent other young women and other young girls from disparate communities, not only not dying from cancer, but not getting it in the first place, Councilmember Harris. And I think that's what you were trying to say. So on behalf of all of us, guys, we have some proclamations to send out. My colleagues individually have some proclamations, but as I call your names, please come and get your proclamation before my colleagues present their proclamation to the person they're going to present it to. Dr. Denise Rubion McLean, Dr. Johnson. They put the old, well,
Yeah, that's
they put
okay.
the other name.
I'm about to have a knee replacement,
You
y'all.
have
I
to
gotta
have a
come
public-
up. I can't, I apologize.
Get a little table and start putting stuff down here. Dr. John Stewart. You guys can see, we're gonna take pictures out. Dr. Sean McKinney. Attorney Denisha Turner. Jody Dyer. Carol Osborne. And Dr. Burrow. Each of my colleagues have presentations. Councilmember Green, you ready?
Ms. Grace Landry. I have a proclamation from Ms. Grace Landry.
She's right there.
If you would come forward and take the middle seat. Thank you, Ms. Landry, for being here today. I've had a chance to do some research into your background, and I just want to say that Grace Landry does it all. Have a seat just for a second. Huh? Okay, that's fine. All right. Ms. Landry is an accounting technician, a caterer, and a personal chef. She volunteers for the Greater New Orleans Sports Foundation and the crew of the Culinary Queens of New Orleans. And most important, she is a breast cancer survivor. Grace's breast cancer journey started on last April 26th when she scheduled an emergency OBGYN appointment at Oshner Baptist Walk-In Clinic. Less than 1 month later, she knew she had invasive ductal carcinoma, stage 4 metastatic breast cancer, which is bone and lymph node metastasis. Grace said that she was in shock with her cancer diagnosis, but quote, being a 2-time cancer survivor already, as this was my 3rd completely different type of cancer, I knew I had to just do it. Just get in there, learn my options through my doctors and research, then decide exactly what I wanted to do about it. Grace said she fought, and I quote again, because it was a good option for me at my age, I did it on my terms. When asked about the kindest thing someone did for her, Grace said, more than one thing, because there were so many kind things that people did for me. The kindest thing I remember is how the village of Algiers Point wrapped their arms around my journey. They did everything from giving me rides, joining me for so many occasions, giving me gifts of scarves, jewelry, stuffed animals, always stopping to ask if I needed help or offering kind words. Grace says, often when I think of my journey through breast cancer, I think of the village and all the beautiful people who were there for me and took the journey with me. Grace's words of encouragement, again, I quote, don't forget that you're human and it's okay to not be at 100%. All your friends and family are praying and rooting for you. Never give up. Grace says that the words that describe her best are fierce, beautiful, absolutely, strong, but the words champion and winner also come to mind. Please let us give us a round of applause for Ms. Grace Landry, cancer survivor. Thank you. Another round of applause, please.
Councilwoman Morel.
Thank you. Today, I'm honoring Miss Diane Honore, who is not present, but I believe Michelle Goldfarb is going to be here to accept this on her behalf. Come on down, Michelle. I'm going to talk about Miss Honore for a second, who's not here, and she's not here for a very good reason. Miss Honore is one of our culture bearers who is representing us abroad in London as one of the founding members of the Black Storyville Baby Dolls. She's also a nurse who has served our community as a frontline healthcare professional. She's a frequent volunteer and leader in our community at the New Orleans Jazz Museum, Historic Faubourg Marigny Association, and Treme Fall Festival. She's also an award winner from the Louisiana Creole Research Association, as well as the Mardi Gras Indian Hall of Fame. But most importantly, she is a breast cancer survivor. She was diagnosed in February of 2012. She underwent a double mastectomy and was treated by Dr. Denise, who was up here moments ago. She credits part of her journey, part of surviving her journey, to a positive outlook, exercise, and eating right. But she wanted to do a special call out to her neighborhood, her community at Algiers Point, because she said they were the village that at her darkest time embraced her, surrounded her, and supported her. And she really wanted to emphasize that when you're going through a difficult time in this journey, having a community around you that embraces you and supports you is what makes it doable. So we appreciate Miss Honore being abroad as one of our cultural bearers, celebrating our city and our culture, but we also want to honor her today. Thank you so much, Michelle, for being here. I'm gonna come around to you right now. Thank you.
Councilmember Molino.
Thank you, Councilmember Thomas. I will be honoring two survivors today. First, the lady who many call the Queen Mom of the crew, the Pink, Ms. Carol Osborne. So Carol, come on up. So we already know Carol. She is active, and I don't even know how many boards and commissions and volunteer events that you're part of, but you're so active. Oh, just a few, but you're very active in our community, and we appreciate all that you do. As I mentioned, she is president emeritus of the Crew to Pink. Of course, Carol is a New Orleans native, and as we've heard from her already, she is a breast cancer survivor. So we want to honor you today with a proclamation. So I'll be down in 1 second. Let me do the second one. Come over to this side, Carol, if you would. My next proclamation is for Anjanette Perkins. Come on down, Anjanette. So as we were working to get, more of Anjanette's story, Anjanette, being modest as she is, was like, I just want a few things mentioned, but and you really only gave me a few things. You wanted to make sure that people knew that you were a graduate of the great Dillard University. And she, yes, you could cheer for that. And she has been employed with the state of Louisiana for 32 years. Now that is some commitment right there. She is an 8-year survivor. Congratulations on that. And she is a devoted wife and mother of 2. So Anjanette, today we honor you. And Ms. Osborne, we honor you as well. To both of you, a big round of applause. And I'll come down to make these presentations.
Congratulations. All right. Councilmember Harris.
Kate, will you come down? Today, we honor Kate Glado. Kate, thank you so much for being here today. We communicated because we needed some talking points as well to talk about your journey, and I just found your email so strangely delightful is what I would say about it. It was just full of, your story, your personal story, but tinged with humor that I really found this is the way that we get through struggles, right? We have to make fun of sometimes what we have to go through. You were diagnosed in May 2021 with invasive ductal carcinoma as a result of resuming your preventative screenings after COVID, to the point about getting tested after COVID. And it came at a time where your husband had been laid off, your kids are going through LEAP testing, and so you had to go through all of the testing in a time of stress. You were also keeping your full-time job as the Senior Director of Marketing and Communications for the Jewish Federation. But again, with the humor that I read in your email about Tuma Thurman, you named your tumor Tuma Thurman, yes, and I was just like, what on earth? But again, that humor I think probably kept you going and makes me want to go get a drink with you after this. By the first week of June, you had surgery scheduled for a bilateral mastectomy, and your kids, Liv, Nate, and Harper, dyed their hair pink. In October, you started taxamethasone. I'm sure I'm butchering that. which is a hormone receptor blocker, and your cancer has been at bay. You spent most of the past year and a half trying to convince anyone that you meet to seek out preventative screenings, and you've increasingly seen your friends die from cancers which are actually treatable if caught at early stages. Your goal going forward for 2023 is to create an aggregated resource of free screening opportunities for New Orleanians, which is so important, many of whom are underinsured and who avoid preventative care as a result. Stigma and costs mean that we're losing so many of our neighbors each and every day, and you really want to help change that. You don't want to reinvent what so many advocacy and fundraising organizations are doing, but helping to create a centralized resource with that information, showing where we can get free, low-cost screenings could be so helpful for everyone in the future. So Kate, thank you. We honor you today.
Councilmember Girousso, no, Councilmember King. Or Councilmember Girousso.
All right, so Maria Stambaugh, I have a proclamation for you. Maria is a Realtor who's done a lot of volunteer work here in the community, including at St. George's and other places. I was touched, I think, Maria, by three things that you said to us. Number one is how much you fought for your daughter. And you mentioned Zoe a couple of times in here. And I think there's things that we do for ourselves, but the things that we do for our children are much more significant. And I, as a parent, I can relate to that. Number two, you mentioned here a couple of times that you were angry when you were first diagnosed in May of 2020. And that is a real emotion about when you're dealing with anything that's traumatic. And I think it's brave to say that out loud too, because I think a lot of people just want to kind of get to the last stage of I'm accepting. And I think talking about the anger and the bargaining and the denial, all the things that you go through is really important too. So I thank you. Yes. But you're working at LSU now. You gave up. Okay, well, it's good to know. There you go. So there you go, Dr. Stewart. And then last, and I'm going to read this part because it really struck me, is talking about how to deal with people on a day-to-day basis and the grace that sometimes people need. And you wrote, sometimes just a smile and kind words mean the world to someone suffering. And I thought that's extraordinarily poignant, particularly at this moment that we're in. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for your fight. Thank you for being here today. And we'll go down there and take a photo. Thank you so much.
Councilmember King.
Thank you, Councilmember Thomas. We have Dr. Chantel Carter Frank, who is not present with us. She's not here today. We also have Senior Police Officer, Officer Patrice Swan. And I don't have anything to read. I could tell you I've been working with Officer Swan when she was in the 4th District. We walked the streets together. We attended plenty neighborhood events together. I even saw Officer Swan on a bicycle, riding around, patrolling the streets of Algiers, the 4th District on a bicycle. So Officer Swan, you're a survivor, and you also put your life on the line and keep us safe. So thank you for all that you've done and all that you continue to do for the men and women of our city. Thank you.
And as Councilmember King goes to take a picture with his presentee, if we could all meet here in the center, we'd like to take a joint picture with all of the presenters as well as the honorees and our colleagues on the council. And of course, once again, Lena Stewart, when you talk about the definition of public servant, Lena has dedicated her life to it, not just being a survivor, but with the work she does with the entire city. So Lena, let's give Lena a big hand, please. Lena Stewart.
Get in there somewhere. They're gonna probably squish you guys a little closer. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, we need a tight.
Shorty's up front.
I just have a little waggy tail in my photo. It's cute. Y'all can come back up here if you want to get away from the last thing.
1, 2, 3.
Jody?
It's wearing a little dress.
I want a picture of your face holding this because I have all your hairs and when they gave it to you.
Jay. She wants to staff. Sure it is.
Oh, all right.
I'm sending her a picture now, but let's see how it is.
We need to. We're not. We don't. I'm just gonna say that I'm gonna try to get some. Soup first.
Yeah.
And then at 11.
Thank you so much.
All right, Madam Clerk, do you want to go to the consent agenda and start going through that? That work?
I just need to say that the second order of business will be brought up later in the meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
And the third order of business is being withdrawn because we had the presentation earlier.
So ordered.
All right, the consent agenda. We have a communication from Aaron Spears, Chief of Staff and Council Utilities Regulatory Office. This should be marked received. We have a communication from Michael Powell, 8430 Apple Street. This should be marked received. Suggested hearing date is October the 20th. We have a communication from Gilbert Montano, Chief Administrative Officer, City of New Orleans. This should be marked received. On page 6, we have a communication from Cynthia Davis, Department of Safety and Permits, City of New Orleans. This should be marked received. Suggested hearing date, October the 20th. We have a communication from Ralph H. Long, 440 Bourbon Street. This should be received. Suggested hearing date, October the 20th. On top of page 7, a communication from Michael Sherman, Sherman Strategies LLC, 502 Frenchman Street, also listed as municipal address 1407 Decatur Street. This should be marked received. Suggested hearing date, October the 20th. We have a communication from Amy B. Trepanier, Director of Personnel, City of New Orleans, Department of Civil Service. This should be marked received, and referred to the Budget Committee. On top of page 8, we have a communication from Amy B. Trepanier, Director of Personnel, City of New Orleans, Department of Civil Service. This should be marked received and referred to the Budget Committee. We have a communication from Amy B. Trepanier, Director of Personnel, City of New Orleans, Department of Civil Service. This should be marked received and referred to the Budget Committee. On page 9, we have a communication from Henrietta Brown, AAE MBA, Deputy Director of Finance and Administration. This should be marked received. On page 10, we have a communication from Darren P. Lombard, Clerk of Criminal District Court. This should be marked received. On page 11, we have a communication from Darren P. Lombard, Clerk of Criminal District Court. This should be marked received. On top of page 12, we have a communication from Sean D. Wilson, PhD, Secretary, DOTD, Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development. This should be marked received. On page 13, we have a report of Stella Zimet, Independent Police Monitor, Office of the Independent Monitor. This should be marked received. We have a report of the Deputy Director of the New Orleans Historic District Landmarks Commission, Central Business District Historic District Landmark Commission, 1237 State Street. This should be marked received. We have a report of the Deputy Director of the New Orleans Historic District Landmarks Commission, Central Business District Historic District Landmark Commission, 8430 Apple Street. This should be marked received. On top of page 14, we have the report of the Deputy Director of the New Orleans Historic District Landmarks Commission, Central Business District Historic District Landmarks Commission, 502 Frenchman Street. This should be marked received. We have the report of the Interim Director of the Vous Carré Commission, 440 Bourbon Street. This should be marked received. We have a report of the Executive Director of the City Planning Commission. This should be marked received. Suggested hearing date, October the 20th. On top of page 15, we have ordinance calendar number 33,849 by Councilmember Thomas, 4600 Flakesy Street, zoning docket 3222. We have ordinance calendar number 33,850 by Councilmember Jeruso, 601 through 615 North Broad Street, 2701 through 2707 Lafitte Street, and 2716 Tulu Street, zoning docket 4422. We're now on top of page 16. We have ordinance calendar number 33,851 by Councilmember King, 2401 through 2403 St. Claude Avenue, zoning docket 4922. We have ordinance calendar number 33,852 by Councilmember Jeruso, 4516 Palmyra Street, and abuts 4518 Palmyra Street, zoning docket 5322. We're now on top of page 17. We have ordinance calendar number 33,853 by Councilmember Jeruso, 4518 Palmyra Street, and abuts 4516 Palmyra Street, zoning docket 5422. We have ordinance calendar number 33,865, Councilmember King, 3825 General DeGaulle Drive, zoning docket 5722. On top of page 18, we have ordinance calendar number 33,869 by Councilmember Harris, zoning docket 5822. We have ordinance calendar number 33,870 by Councilmember Harris, zoning docket 6022. On page 19, motion M22-435 by Councilmember Harris by request. The questionnaire was received. Governmental Affairs Committee recommended approval. Those are all the matter on the consent agenda.
Motion to approve. Oh, I
We
didn't see.
still need 5. We only have 4.
Ah.
We need 1 more.
Coming.
We're ready to adopt the consent agenda.
Thank you. Is there any public comment?
No.
No public comment. Got it. All right. It's been moved by Councilmember Druso, seconded by Councilmember Green. All in favor, please. 5 yeas, no nays, and the consent agenda is adopted.
Okay. We're now going to go to page 11. We have zoning docket 5022. Councilmember, I need to receive communication under suspension, please.
All right, I'll move to suspend the rules to receive a communication. If I can please get a second. Seconded by Councilmember Harris. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And the rules are suspended, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. We have a communication from Sean D. Ferguson, Superintendent of Police, New Orleans Police Department, submitting the findings created by the working group involving members of the City Council and the New Orleans Police Department and excuse me, and urging criminal district court to participate to determine the rule of the court, if any, in receiving information from the NOPD on its use of facial recognition technology according to ordinance number 33,809. This letter serves to submit the working group's findings in advance of the September the 30th deadline. We need to suspend the rules one more time to add this to the agenda.
I'll make a motion. Seconded by Councilmember Green. Six yeas, no nays.
Okay, so Councilmember King, we're coming back to your matter. I'm asking if you're ready, or do I need to continue on the agenda?
Continue.
Okay, we're on page 20. Oh, no, we're not. Wait a minute. We're on page 20. We have a regular agenda, the legislative grouping, a communication from Amy B. Trepanier, Director of Personnel, City of New Orleans, Department of Civil Service, submitting for council approval an amendment to the classified pay plan police in accordance with Article 10, Section 10 of the Constitution of Louisiana as adopted by the Civil Service Commission at its meeting of September the 19th, 2022, as outlined. Class code is C7153. New classification, the Police Bureau Chief of Staff, exempt, grade 88. Grade step annual minimum, 8801, 60,859. Grade step hiring rate, 8809, 67,218. Grade step annual maximum, 8841, $100,030. We have motion M 2242-425 by Council Members Jeruso, Moreno, Morel, Green, and Thomas, approving the amendment to the classified pay plan police, new classification, Police Bureau of Chief of Staff exempt, as adopted by the Civil Service Commission at its meeting of September 19, 2022, to be effective October 10th, 2022, in accordance with Article 10, Section 10 of the Constitution of Louisiana.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Ordinarily, members, you know that we received communication. This would go to committee, which would be on October 13th, but then not be voted on until the 20th. Because of these two positions, the first of which is a chief of staff to help with the administrative functioning of an OPD. And then secondly, the police investigative supervisor, which is to help facilitate the civilians. I thought it was important to make sure we're speeding this along rather than going by the normal process. So with that, unless anybody has any questions or there's any public or online comments, I've moved for approval. I think Councilmember Green seconded. I call the matter for a vote. 6 yeas, no nays, carries. Thank you.
We're now on top of page 21. We have a legislative grouping, a communication from Amy B. Trepanier, Director of Personnel, City of New Orleans, Department of Civil Service, submitting for council approval an amendment to the classified pay plan police in accordance with Article 10, Section 10 of the Constitution of Louisiana, as adopted by the Civil Service Commission at its meeting of September 19, 2022, as outlined below. Class code C7152, new classification, police investigative supervisor, non-exempt, grade 78. Grade step annual minimum, 7801, 47,471. Grade step hiring rate, 7809, 52,431. Grade step annual maximum, 78,041, I'm sorry. And the salary is 78,024. We have motion M 22-426 by council members Jeruso, Moreno, Morel, Green, and Thomas, approving the amendment to the classified pay plan, police, new classification, police and get investigative supervisor, non-exempt, as adopted by the Civil Service Commission at its meeting of September 19th, 2022, to be effective October 10th, 2022, in accordance with Article 10, Section 10 of the Constitution of Louisiana.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Move for approval. Seconded by Councilmember King. Thank you. Members, please vote your machines. 7 yeas, no nays.
Okay. We're now going to go to page 23. We have zoning docket 5022, Crew of Red Beans, requesting a conditional use to permit a cultural facility with a bar and live entertainment, secondary use in an HMMU historic marina Terme Bywater mixed-use district on Square 139, lots A2, and undesignated lot B and 1 in the first municipal district bounded by Piety Street, Royal Street, Charter Street, and Desire Street. Municipal addresses 3300 Royal Street and 633 Piety Street. The recommendation of the City Planning Commission being no legal majority.
All right.
Thank you, Council Member. This is a conditional use application under the zoning ordinance that would enable the former Giordano Furniture Manufacturing Building on Royal between Piety and Desire and the Bywater to be used as Beanlandia, which would be the home of the Crew of Red Beans. The Crew of Red Beans is a local organization that is focused on the craft and culture of Mardi Gras. And by becoming its home, this structure, Beanlandia, would function as a hybrid of several land uses that are defined in the zoning ordinance. It would be a combination of a cultural facility, which is a permitted use in the zoning district, a bar, which is a conditional use, and would have a live entertainment secondary use component, which is also a conditional use. And so as part of the conditional use process, the Planning Commission is tasked with looking at an individual tenant and development plan for a site and making a determination as to whether it's appropriate for that site, given the goals of the zoning district and the potential land use impacts of the operation. The Planning Commission staff recommended approval of the application, finding that this is a appropriate way of repurposing this historic former industrial building in a way that makes sense given the mixed use nature of the zoning district and the goals of the master plan, which are baked into the zoning ordinance, to take former industrial property and repurpose them in a way that allows for a mix of commercial and residential use, and that this proposal would be consistent with the purposes under the master plan and the zoning ordinance. The Planning Commission was divided on that, and that was in large part because there was a lot of opposition and a lot of support from neighbors. The support generally, touched on a lot of things, but in general, it was about the cultural importance of the Crew of Red Beans and the positive community impact it has, and the need to give it a house, and really the benefit to the community of using this vacant former industrial space for that sort of community serving purpose. The opposition also touched on a number of things as well. There was concerns about parking demand from visitors to the venue, the noise and other impacts associated with live entertainment, as well as the scale and visitor capacity of the building itself. And so the Planning Commission staff recommended approval with 2 waivers and 7 provisos, but the commission itself was split. It did not pass a vote either in favor or in opposition. And so this is before you as a council with no recommendation from the Planning Commission.
All right, thank you. We have a couple of comment cards. First is Ms. Margaret Woodward. I don't see her present. She is in support. I have Ms. Gonzalez, Marla Gonzalez. She is in opposition. Devin Wolf. Wolf.
Hello.
Go ahead, you can start, Mr. Wolf.
Okay. City Council, thank you for having us today. We had a little time confusion, so a lot of our supporters are not here right now, but they might show up. But you see people supporting the Crew of Red Beans here, wearing our shirts. The reason that they're supporting us is because we support the community. During the pandemic, we've created jobs for 250 plus culture bears in our city. Musicians, Mardi Gras Indians, baby dolls, second line folks. And that mission to help our cultural economy is what Beanlandia is all about. The other thing that we're trying to do with Beanlandia is create a lot of programming for children. Our city has a serious issue with crime right now and violence, as you're aware. And we believe that children's programming is the solution. It's not an immediate solution, but it's going to take years of that. And that's what we as a community organization hope to do. So appreciate y'all supporting our initiative of getting this cultural facility off the ground. It will be a hub of sustainable tourism. It will be good for our neighborhood. It will be good for families. And we're very excited about it because we think it can really provide a big impact for young people in our city, for musicians in our city, and for culture bearers in our city. So I appreciate y'all having us today. And also I'm happy to answer any questions, but thank you very much.
Thank you. This time I'm going to suspend the rules to introduce this motion. Madam Clerk.
Okay. I'm gonna read it into the record first and then we'll suspend the rules. We have motion M22-450 by Councilmember King. Be it moved by the Council of the City of New Orleans that the report and recommendation of no legal majority by the City Planning Commission on zoning docket 5022 Crew of Red Beans requesting a conditional use to permit a cultural facility with a bar and live entertainment secondary use in an HUMU historic Marigny Treme Bywater mixed-use district located on square 139 lots A2, and an undesignated lot B and 1 in the first municipal district bounded by Piety Street, Royal Street, Charter Street, and Desire Street. Municipal address 3300 Royal Street and 633 Piety Street. It is approved in part and denied in part. Accordingly, the applicant's request for a conditional use for a bar is denied, and the applicant's request for a conditional use for live entertainment secondary use is approved, subject to 2 waivers and 7 provisos set forth in the City Planning Commission's report, removing proviso number 2 and subject to the following modifications to waiver number 1 and proviso number 5. And the additional 3 waivers and 8 provisos to be renumbered accordingly and read as follows. Waivers. Number 1, the developer shall be granted a variance of Article 22, Section 22.4 of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance requiring 96 off-street parking spaces to be provided and be required to provide only 12 off-street parking space on site. The developer shall be granted a waiver of Article 22, Section 22.8.c of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance requiring a 2-way drive aisle to be at least 24 feet in width and be permitted a drive aisle that is only 19 feet in width. The developer shall be granted a waiver of the applicable parking landscape requirements in Article 23 of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance to allow no parking lot landscape to be required. The developer shall be granted a waiver of Article 22, Section 22.4 and 22.6 of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance for 1 year following the issuance of the certificate of occupancy. The provisos, the plans submitted to the City Planning Commission for final approval shall indicate the installation of at least 12 short-term bicycle parking spaces. The design of bicycle parking spaces shall comply with the requirement as set forth in Article 22, Section 22.9 of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance. When submitting plans to the City Planning Commission for final approval, the developer shall provide documentation of all required approvals by the Department of Public Works for any bicycle space located in a public right-of-way. Number 2, the site plan shall indicate the locations, type, and height of any exterior lighting. Any proposed exterior lighting shall comply with standards of Article 21, Section 21.5 of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance. In accordance with Article 23, Section 23.13.a of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance, the plans submitted to the City Planning Commission for final approval shall indicate the location of the trash receptacle which may be within an enclosed structure or screened by a 7-foot opaque fence with latching gates. At no time except in trash collection days shall trash be stored as to be visible from the public's right-of-way. The restaurant and live entertainment secondary use components of the development shall operate in accordance with the relevant use standards in Article 20 of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance. The Department of Safety and Permits shall issue no building permits or licenses for this project until final development plans are approved by City Planning Commission and recorded with the Office of Conveyances. Failure to complete the conditional use process to properly record plans within 1 year, or failure to request an administrative extension as provided for in Article 4, Section 4.3.8.2 of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance will void the conditional use approval. Prior to the issuance of any alcoholic beverage outlet licenses, the applicant shall demonstrate compliance with the requirement of City Code Section 10-236 to the Department of Safety and Permits. All on-site parking spaces shall measure at least 10.5 feet in width on center, except for the accessible vehicle parking space, which shall measure 9 feet in width and include an abutting access aisle 9 feet in width. The on-site parking area shall be reserved for parking except on Saturday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., during which time the area may be used for the purpose of hosting a market that shall be free and open to the public. Food and beverage service shall cease on or before 9 p.m. nightly. All live entertainment shall cease on or before 9 p.m. nightly. Service of alcoholic beverages and plastic Go Cups shall be prohibited. Live entertainment shall be limited to the first floor. There shall be no deliveries on Saturdays or Sundays. There shall be no seating provided on the public right-of-way. We need to suspend the rules, council members, so that we can receive this motion.
I make a motion, second by Councilmember Harris. 5 yeas, no nays. Rules suspended.
Okay, just give me a minute. Now we need to further suspend the rules to add this to the agenda.
I make a motion, second by Councilmember Harris.
1 minute. Less than 5 minutes. Right.
5 yeas, no nays. Motion is properly added.
And now, you can adopt it when you're ready or have your conversation.
But we'll continue with the public comment.
Okay.
I have Tyrone Stevenson. Is that it? Tyrone doesn't have if he's in support or in opposition. Okay. Philip Kiefer. Philip Kiefer. He's in support. Yeah, what's the name?
Tyrone Stevenson.
Tyrone Stevenson. Okay, thank you, Mr. Stevenson. 2 minutes.
I'm here to support Beanlandia, be the second line. I think it's a beautiful idea. We've been a part of it since the pandemic. Me, I'm Big Chief Pride of Mardi Gras Hunters. I've been associated with Master for 42 years. When Mr. Devon came up with this idea to do the be the second line culture and really being parade, it was really needed, man. I mean, we do a lot of stuff at Beanlandia. We save kids' lives, man. We give them another alternative besides the drugs and the carjacking and all the crimes that's going on in the city. We work with kids, we mentor them, we teach them the culture. We were the first tribe that when the pandemic happened, that we all got together with the Feed the Second Line and we fed the culture bearers that have been here for years, supporting this culture. You know, and I was one of them that was raised in the culture. So every month we give food to the culture bearers, the people that have been here before us, paid the way for us. So at this time, I would like to say everything that we are doing at Beanlandia is a beautiful thing. And when you can do things without trying to lean on your representatives and everything, that's a beautiful thing, man. You know what I'm saying? So we trying to save lives, give our kids another alternative besides the streets. You know, it's a homework after school program we do. We mentor them. Yeah, we feed them. We give them jobs. You understand? So this organization is a beautiful thing, man. And I just hope that y'all agree with us that if we could save one, we could teach one, we could save one. We're doing an excellent job. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Steve. Philip Kiefer. He is in support. James Noone, Noone. He's in support. MX Turner, support. Maxwell, I'm sorry, I'm going too fast. What's the name?
MX Turner.
MX Turner.
I've been a member of the crew for 3 years. And I just want to point out that we have a yin yang about New Orleans, where we love our culture and we do everything we can to support our culture, but we have this habit of throwing up roadblocks that get in the way of moving our culture forward. And I think of all the buildings that are sitting unoccupied that we've never quite been able to put back into the public bloodstream of culture here in New Orleans. And this is a chance to do that. This is a chance to be cross-community, to reach out to everybody from Black Masking Indians to local residents, kids, kids of all ages. And I think it doesn't matter what Beans has done in the past, all the good works we've done and all the outreach we've done. What matters now is setting an example where crews or civic organizations can come together and do something that's new and adventurous, yet totally respectful of the traditions of our city in the past. And I think if we don't get a chance to make this a fully functional, fully operational community center, not just a clubhouse for the crew, but a community center across the city, then it sends a message that anyone who wants to take the initiative from this point forward is going to be told, no, you can't do it. It's too complicated. And I think what is not complicated is the idea of celebrating our culture, of making it possible for our culture to continue in these hard times. So the volunteerism that comes in here is important, and your support for making us, giving us the opportunity to move forward is incredibly welcome and incredibly valued. And I hope the council will approve this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Callaway. I'm sorry, Max. I'm sorry. I do apologize. Then we'll have, is it Klein? Callaway. That's in Callaway, following Mr. Max.
Thank you, council members. Maxwell Chardulo, 3702 St. Claude. On this, I'm speaking just as myself, a resident of the Bywater, not representing any organization. I'm not a Red Beans member. I don't know Mr. DeWolf. I'm here supporting just because I want this vacant building to be redeveloped, and I think a cultural facility with a bar is a great idea. I'm not scared of our culture, and I'm not scared of bars, and I question why people who are actually live in New Orleans. There are a bunch of bars in the Bywater, and they're assets to the neighborhood. They're part of why I live there. So I just want to remind you that there are a lot of people in the neighborhood who want it to be a vibrant and interesting place, not just a quiet museum of old homes. Thank you.
Thank you. It's first initial K, last name Callaway, still here?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kiana Callaway. I'm the Executive Director of Roots Renewal. We're laboring Uptown. We just partnered with Beanlandia. Had a conversation with the young brother to talk about how can we bring real projects to that community. A lot of people are being overlooked by the projects and programming that's in space. So what we've developed is a free studio. A studio for everybody who have been impacted by any type of system that they can come in here and just record for free, express themselves for free. So that's where the live music came in. That's where the bar came in, because we need to have a space for them to perform. This won't just be something where they could come in and have fun. This will be a program that will be designed to help build these young men. Everyone know that I've been doing this work a long time. It's been a minute since I've stepped on this platform right here, but I really do believe that this is something that could be beneficial, not only for Bywater, but this can be replicated all across the city of New Orleans, because we need programming. We also know that idle mind is a devil's workshop. And that's what we're trying to do. So I really appreciate y'all supporting this initiative. And moving forward, we could probably just strengthen it and moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Callaway. Denise Smith. She is in support.
Good afternoon. My name is Denise Smith. I'm a member of Monogram Hunters. I'm Big Queen of Monogram Hunters. When Devin came up with the idea, I thought it was beautiful. So I hope you all support us in this. It gave the culture, all the culture barriers of the city, a place to go. We can sew there. We have kids we're teaching how to sew to become future members of any culture that they decide to choose from. So please, please, please support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Did I overlook any in-person public comments? Everyone, did you fill a card out? Okay, you can speak once you finish. Just fill a card. You can speak first. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Catherine. I am a member of the Red Beans crew, and I'm an artist. I have been working there on murals for the museum that is going to be there. Not only is the space going to be a beautiful museum of all of the artwork that we make, it's an education space, it's a community space. It is there for building bridges within the community, and it's there for our community as a whole. It's, it will be a place where people will come look and see what it's like, but it's mainly a space of education and community. It's not about, having big, crazy events, and it's about a good, wholesome community, which you can see at many of the members here, and creating a place for kids to come and learn, like this last wonderful woman was just saying. It's all for good, and there's no other place like it. It's unique, and it's going to be beautiful. So please support.
Thank you. Do you have any comments, public comments? Online comments?
Yes, we have several.
Several? More than 5 minutes?
We have about, maybe not, about 52, I think. sorry, 55, 57? Yeah.
We'll read 8 minutes of public comment.
Okay. First comment is from Patricia Bernstein. She says, Crew of Red Beans is amazing. It has already helped so many of us. I've been lucky to make art for them. I can't wait for this restaurant and community space. Please grant them what they need with the zoning and parking. Krista Rock comments, I'm here to show my unwavering support for the Crew of Red Beans. They've done such incredible things for our city, and we all need to support them in their next evolution. Alexandra Miller comments, please approve the zoning request for Beanlandia. This will be a great asset to the community, including the area around Markey Park where I spent a lot of time. It will offer children's services and community gathering space. Jessica Pence comments, the Crew of Red Beans is building a community-focused space that is going to give back to the local residents as well as out-of-town visitors. I support their motion and would recommend the City Council to approve. Emily Bear comments, please support the repurposing of this space into a community hub by granting the parking waiver requested. Bywater is a historic core neighborhood developed long before the arrival of the car and should be treated as such. Please allow this project to move forward for the good of the entire neighborhood and beyond, and recognize that many of the people making use of the space will be arriving by foot, bike, and transit. Ann Roberts comments, I fully support the mission of this community organization to better support our city's greatest and most at-risk resource, our culture bearers. Ashley Dean comments, Crew of Red Beans has been a force for good in our city for years, and Beanlandia will be an excellent community and cultural space in the Bywater. Dave Lancer says, over the past decade plus, the Crew of Red Beans has put in the hard work of living up to the Social Aid and Pleasure Club name through several community-focused programs such as Feed the Second Line, Safe and Sustainable Infrastructure Advocacy, and Direct Aid to Storm Victims. Beanlandia will allow the crew to build on those programs and give back even more to the community at large, and so I support the zoning change and parking waiver. Connie Thompson comments, please approve Beanlandia's request. They are a great organization and an asset to our community. Mark Schroeder comments, Crew of Red Beans is an outstanding group which supports the city of New Orleans and its population in many positive ways. It should be noted that I'm not a member, just someone who appreciates them. The city should support this group and its cultural enrichment activities in any way possible, including parking waivers and zoning changes to support cultural centers. It's clear to me that the Crew of Red Beans are responsible cultural stewards of New Orleans and can be trusted to better the city as well, and specifically the areas around any physical locations where they host activities. Hillary Dazaniga says, I support Crew of Red Beans in opening Beanlandia. Good people, good intentions, good works, and good space for the community. Daniel Feinart says, this is the kind of venue / community center that New Orleans needs. I love what Crew of Red Beans has envisioned for this space, and I urge the City Council to approve the zoning change. They are clearly investing time and money into our community to build it up and help it flourish. This organization is working to preserve and support our unique New Orleans culture and will use this space for community good. Seems like a no-brainer. Amelia Clements says, as a homeowner, Bywater resident, parent, and crew member, I would love to see Beanlandia become an all-ages music venue. While our neighborhood has many music venues and bars, none are family-friendly. I support the crew's vision of this place as a hub for culture and community. Jeanette Ginsburg comments, please support Crew of Red Beans and Beanlandia and the good work they do for the whole community, especially our culture bearers. Through their initiatives, they have proven over and over again that they are responsible neighbors and good civic partners. Martin Devaney says, as the neighbor, I support the zoning change request by the Crew of Red Beans. This change request is crucial for enhancing the use of this space and will underpin the crew's mission to support the New Orleans community. Jillian Richmond says, I support the efforts of Beanlandia as a cultural institution and hope you will approve their request to change their zoning from warehouse to cultural facility. with standard restaurant and live music as a secondary use of the restaurant. Additionally, I support the request for a parking waiver. The crew of Red Beans consistently demonstrates its commitment to New Orleans and its diverse cultures. It helps create and maintain a positive image for New Orleans, both locals and tourists. Thank you for your consideration. Beth Diodano says crew of Red Beans are only a force of good in our community, my neighborhood. Please understand their long game is to contribute for all, to bring family-friendly events to Beanlandia, which will always be executed with neighbors in mind. Please let this happen. It will be good for everybody. Please don't let naysayers who might not even live here full-time make trouble for y'all. Thank you. Liz Zamilis says crew of Red Beans has been nothing but open and welcoming for years and really looking forward to this community space. Robert Newman, representing crew of Red Beans and Beanlandia, says, I was introduced to the crew of Red Beans in Beanlandia during COVID. They've done a great job of helping to keep our New Orleans music and art traditions alive and well. Their support for support of New Orleans musicians and Mardi Gras Indian clubs has been a blessing to many. Allowing the zoning change and usage permission will truly help the community-focused social programs planned. Please grant the requests and let's start a new old-fashioned positive place to live and grow in New Orleans. Christopher LeBlanc of crew of Red Beans says, as a local New Orleanian supportive of all things New Orleans, I'd like to voice my support for Beanlandia. This endeavor will greatly benefit the local community, families, and residents of the city, as well as educate visitors about New Orleans culture and heritage. Community engagement and support has been at the forefront of all crew of Red Beans projects and initiatives. Beanlandia will be no different. Ayla Goforth says, I'm a current Beanlandia donor. I'm so excited for this multi-use space, and it will be such a pleasant and valued addition to the neighborhood. Devin is very thorough and thoughtful in his plan for the space and members. Laura McCallum says, I request a zoning change for the crew of Red Beans property from warehouse to cultural center with standard restaurant with the parking waiver. Having this property available for community events and programs will help social cohesion as well as local artists and initiatives, while helping fans like me promote NOLA culture to others who live out of town. Please approve these changes to help the local community while spreading the culture of New Orleans farther afield, encouraging us to come visit and spend our dollars in NOLA. Rachel Fontaine says, I'm a homeowner and business owner in the historic Bywater neighborhood. Both my home and my office building are within 300 feet of Beanlandia. I support crew of Red Beans' Beanlandia property shifting zoning from warehouse to cultural center. I do not support the sale of alcohol at this location. I support special events up to one a month. I do not support music past 9 p.m. on weekdays. The neighborhood already struggles with limited parking during the weekend. This should be considered. If there was a waiver on parking, we would need to implement controls somehow. What about the people who live and work in the neighborhood? Where will they park? This could be a major problem. We do not need a massive music venue across from our park and playground. We do need to activate the empty space. Yay for community, nay for booze by the playground. This is all I have to say on the matter.
That's our time for online comments. We did receive several more public comment cards in interest of time and keep the meeting moving efficiently. I'm gonna just read the names. Ms. Vince Hayward, he's a support. Please support this world-class culture tourist destination. Ms. Amy Muhammad, musician, culture bearer, she's in support. Karen Marshall, in support. Coastal rest education in STEM, coastal restoration in STEM. Via Tran, he's in support. Alphonse Robert in support. Walter Fair in support. The Red Beans organization helps our club and community. Mike Mosk, M-O-S-K-E, I believe, or M-O-S-K-O. I apologize if it's wrong. He's in support. Jeremy Kelly, I believe Beanlandia will be a meaningful community. Can't get that last word, but he's in support. Community member. Catherine Hill. This place is for good in New Orleans. She's in support. Allison Brar, I support Beanlandia, and community support. So that's all the cards that's in support. I have a couple, but any comments from the dais before I make my comments? Seeing none. While this application originally requested a conditional use for a bar, this component was withdrawn by the applicant in response to neighborhood concern that the facility would prohibit children on premises. After months of public engagement, I feel that this motion strikes a sensible balance between the needs of the neighborhood and the goals of the applicant. Beanlandia is a model of sustainable tourism, putting tourism dollars back into the community in the form of mutual aid and community programming. This project represents a community-driven investment in children for our city, which is how we as a community need to fight crime and violence. Since COVID, the crew of Red Beans has supported 45 local restaurants, 14 neighborhood bars, 250 musicians, Black Mask and Indians, 35 Mardi Gras artists, building houses and floats, not to mention feeding every ICU and ER in our city for the first 6 weeks of COVID. They show the power of our city's culture, and Beanlandia will help them continue that work. For this reason, I invite my colleagues to support this motion, and I wish the crew of Red Beans good luck in this endeavor. So I make a motion. I move to adopt. By Councilmember Green and by Councilmember Harris. 6, 7 yeas, no nays, motion's adopted. Good luck in the future, Beanland. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
At the bottom of the page, zoning docket 5622 has been deferred to 1020. Council members,
If we could keep the noise to a minimum. Look, we're asking for the crew of Red Beans to exit quietly so we can continue with the meeting. Thank you.
we're gonna go back to page 3, the second order of business, a presentation, Ubuntu Village, Mr. Ernest Johnson, Director of Ubuntu Village NOLA, Betty DeMarco, Sinead Cooper, Javier Jordan, Tiffany Hicks, and Tara Thomas. Ubuntu Village NOLA's Parent Leaders Educated for Action program, whose goal is to reduce crime through parent leadership
Excuse me, Madam
classes.
Clerk, Madam Clerk, Mr. Devin, can y'all, Devin, the wolf, Devin.
Hey, Devin, keep it down. Thank you. Y'all keep it down. Thank you.
You can proceed, Madam Clerk, thank you.
Thank you. Ubuntu Village NOLA's Parent Leaders Educating for Action program, whose goal is to reduce crime through parent leadership classes and parental advocacy.
It's not about him, it's about us. He's not coming.
All right, I see Mr. Johnson hiding in the back, but once he comes up, why don't y'all introduce yourselves?
I am Shanada Cooper. I am one of the parent navigators with the Ubuntu Village.
My name is Javier Jordan. I'm a parent advocate as well as the director of From Your NOLA.
And my name is Tyra Thomas. I'm one of the parents that's a part of the program.
And my name is Ernest Johnson. I'm the director of Ubuntu Village.
You need no introduction. But for you in the audience who don't know about Mr. Johnson and Ubuntu Village, this is an important organization as we're talking about culture bearers and things that the culture does for our children. You all are a huge part of that. And so we wanted to highlight you and your work today, and so I turn it over to you to make your presentation.
We want y'all to know us, not Mr. Ernest. So, hello, City Council members. Thank you for having us here today. My name is Shanada. I am a mother of 4. I am a parent navigator with the Ubuntu Village NODA, a nonprofit organization that supports and advocates for family of children in the legal justice system. I found Ubuntu after one of my own sons was arrested. They helped me navigate the juvenile court process and connected me to resources I needed to support my son. Now I do the same for other families, working closely with the juvenile court system, JJIC, community programs to make sure families have what they need to get their kids out of the system for good. I'm proud to be here today with other members of the organization, parent leaders educating for action. We are parents, grandparents, aunts, and other caregivers who want to make New Orleans a safer place to raise our families. Many, though not all of us, have children who has been involved in a juvenile court system. Many of us has lost loved ones to violence and has been a victim of violence ourselves. Like everyone, we want to be able to provide our kids with a safe, healthy, and joyful lives. But that can be hard here in New Orleans, where violence and the cost of living just keep rising. We surveyed parents, mostly low-income Black mothers, and found that their most pressing concerns is paying their bills every month. That's followed by having affordable housing, healthcare, and quality education for their kids. We parents care deeply about our children, but it can be hard to be there for them when you work 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet. Unfortunately, the city alone with the state and the federal government does not invest enough of resources for kids and families and what they need to survive, let alone thrive. According to the mayor's office, Youth of Families, only 3% of the budget is invested directly into youth ages 0 to 24. That's 3% of our budget, nearly for a third of the population. And I will argue that the most important of our population, our children. How can we expect young people to thrive if we only spend $1 a day on each child? That's not enough when we have such a high rate of children living in poverty, suffering from untreated trauma in this city. These are some of the root causes of violence in our community. Yet, rather than invest in young people to prevent these problems, we spend millions to lock them up. More than a quarter of the general fund goes to one single department, NOPD. An additional 20% goes to other dozen areas such as public safety, such as courts, sheriff's office, and a juvenile jail. We want to be safer, and we know you want to make New Orleans a safer place too. But the police, criminal legal system does not prevent violence. They only respond to it. Study after study shows this, as does our own experience. Chief Ferguson himself has recognized that policing cannot address the underlying causes of crime and has called for prevention measures. We are here today as some of the people most affected by violence and incarceration to say it's time to take a different path. The way we make New Orleans a safer and healthier place to live is to invest in resources kids and families need to sustain themselves. We know what those things are: affordable housing, accessible healthcare, livable wages, reliable transportation, and so on. We have a plan to achieve them. Just look at the Youth Master Plan, the Call for Care report on reducing child trauma, and the VITA institution budget their recommendations for preventing violence and crime. We have the knowledge, we have the tools, and with all the money coming from the federal government, we have the funds. You all have an incredible opportunity right now to make New Orleans a safer place to raise our children and yours. As a parent and a voter, I'm asking you to do right by my children and everyone else's ones too, to invest in their success. I just want to say thank you, and I would like to add that I have a 2-parent household with my kids, and it still allowed my son some kind of way. He wiggled through and still got in trouble. And as a parent that really cares and really do as much as they can, keep them involved in anything that I could do, it was more hurtful for me to go to the judge and be like, listen, at this point, I'm a parent, I did all that I could do. And he's like 16 years old, you decide all these years to mess up, right? But he's a child, he can make a mistake. But for somebody else inside the court to tell me, well, we don't have the resources for you because this is his first time getting into trouble, or because he hasn't been in the system multiple times, or the crime wasn't a great crime, that we don't have resources to give you. I think that's unfair and something that we should not do. We should have them available before they get in trouble. So thank you, and I'm gonna pass it on to, go ahead, Tom.
Good morning. How y'all doing? My name is Tara. I am raising my grandson who is 17 years old. Last year, he made a mistake and was arrested for it. Fortunately, I was referred to Ubuntu Village by Badisha Harness Parker, who's also a mentor and a coach, and she's been there. She's a mother of her own, but she's the mother to a lot. She really comes out and makes sure these kids are straight. She was there when my grandson got into this trouble, and she sat there in the house and was like, "Oh my God, Miss Tara, we gotta call somebody because this boy can't handle jail like that." She was there, my grandson participated in a number of programs to get him back right on track through the court. He did the Mellows program and the Orleans Detention Alternative Program, which is especially good. Oh. They come to you rather than you having to go to them. But it was really when he started the Pathways program that I began to see the difference. I'm very grateful for these programs and hope that the city continues to fund them and others. But young people shouldn't have to be arrested to get supported, the support they need. Programs like Pathways should be available in schools and communities to prevent problems in the first place. The city should also expand the Job One program to give more young people the opportunity to work in the summer and also part-time during the school year. The Mayor's Guaranteed Income Pilot Project could also be expanded, as it's clear that putting a little money in young people's pocket can make a huge impact. When kids do harmful mistakes, these kind of programs can be used as alternatives to jail and prosecution. This is important because the single arrest or night in jail makes young people more likely to commit a crime in the future, even if the charges against them are dropped. If we want to be safer, we need to do everything in our power to keep young people out of the system and support them in our communities instead. The Offices of Youth and Family has been a great partner in supporting programs to reach youth inside and outside the legal system. They have also funded our parents group, making it possible for us to support each other and our kids. These programs are working, and we hope you will fund them in the budget for next year. Okay, and also I would like to let y'all know a little bit about me. I'm a grandmother. I'm raising my 2 grandkids, and it's hard. I barely make ends meet, but with God, I've been raising them. My grandson since the age of 4. Now he is 17 years old. It's very hard as a mother of 5. All of my kids are grown, but I'm also a grandmother. I would never say it's easy raising a male child, but I think I had and still are doing a great job. I really thought the village was over until I met these great people. Badisha Harness, Mr. Ernest, other people that's been really there for me, helping me. Also, I would like to say that Mr. Oliver Thomas, he was at my grandson's graduation. He was there and he was really excited about the way he spoke. He was like, "Go ahead, boy." But Deisha is also has her own project. It's called the NOYC. It's called New Orleans Youth Coalition. She has been a great help. She's a mother and a wife, but she's also a friend and a mentor to these kids. She always puts them first. Second, in Ubuntu Village, Mr. Ernest, he is amazing. He helps us mentally and physically. Where would we be without him? And also, my grandson is being mentored by Mike Paulstein of the Channel 4 News. He comes and get them and bring them to Saints games, Pelican games, everything. So I have the village. I thought they were gone, but they're still here. So I thank y'all for listening to me. Also, he brought them to the Fried Chicken Festival. So I thank y'all, and guess what? My grandson will be walking across the stage next year in the class of 2023. Thank y'all.
Okay. Hi, my name is Javier and I'm a parent advocate with Ubuntu Village NOLA, as well as a director of Up From Here NOLA, a youth nonprofit organization. Earlier this year, we tried to organize a youth field day in East Shore Park in Little Woods. We walked around, passed out flyers, and almost everyone we spoke to said that they did not feel safe with bringing their kids to the park. This was really upsetting to me, so I started to do more research into North parks across the city. I found that about half had unsafe playground equipment or none at all. Only 14 had recreational centers, which means no AC in the summer, no heat in the winter, and often no restrooms or water fountains. As a mother of 4 young children, I can say this is nearly impossible for me to take my kids to the park, especially to the ones closest to my house. Nord is doing the best it could, but its budget is far too small to serve all of New Orleans. They have only 18 million to spread across 106 parks and hundreds of thousands of people. That means worse facilities, shorter hours, and fewer programs, especially for the youth. This mostly impacts families who can't afford to put their kids in private activities or pay for extended childcare. North should serve everyone in New Orleans, but some areas of the city have greater needs than others, like New Orleans East and Algiers. That's why we should both increase North's budget and direct more funds to the lowest income neighborhoods. This is also the matter of public safety. Studies show that youth are most likely to get in trouble in the hours of after school and before their parents get home from work. Yet once again, we're sacrificing positive preventative measures for negative reactive ones. The council just reallocated $3 million for a recreational center in the east and $2 million for a library to pay for yet another jail. I know y'all oppose phase 3 and are being forced to fund it, but why does the money have to come from a project that would directly benefit the youth and reduce crime? Why can't it come from the 47% of the budget that we already used and spent to arrest and incarcerate people? I urge you to consider how an investment in Nord is an investment in our kids and in our safety. Every child deserves to have a healthy and safe place to go, no matter where they live or how much money their family have. We want to work with you to achieve this vision. Can each of you commit to meeting with us about how we can work together? Okay. And I also, I appreciate that. I also just want to give my personal testimony and just let y'all know that I'm in the East. I'm in Little Woods. I'm with the kids all day. And I just want y'all to know that it's a battle. It's a battle to get the funds. You know, it's a battle to keep the kids safe, to keep them out of trouble. And for people like me, it's a battle in my household because my husband is ready to pack us up and go because of the lack of resources we have, the crime, you know, and just the help that we have for the kids, the schools, you know. So I'm just trying my best. You know, with the funds we have, I also have the youth ministry over my church. So a lot of my support comes from my help. Myself, Mr. Ernest helps me out a great deal, and my church family, and then the community. So I just want y'all to consider Nord and the kids.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson, you want to take us home?
Thank you.
So we just want to close with saying that we are grateful that you all let us come here today to hear us. And we just pray that you hear us, but also listen to what we have to say and just really consider everything that you all have learned from us today. That these things are very important to us. And we're not just voters, but we are parents, and we actually care about not just our own children, but the children that's in the communities and the city of New Orleans. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wait. We have some questions. I have some questions.
So if I can, I just want to
Yes.
close. It's not about me. It's about the parents that I work with. It's about the children of New Orleans. And it's too often that when things occur, that parents get blamed for those incidents. And I would just like y'all to know, and I hope this today was an example that these parents care about what happened in their community. They are ordinary people. And as a village, what we're trying to do is promote public safety through the work that we do, and to prevent these things from happening, because we don't want anyone to be a victim of any kind of violence. And most of all, we can't continue to lose our Black young men. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Johnson, Ms. Cooper, who I'm sure we will hear more from you, Ms. Jordan and Ms. Thomas, Councilmember Thomas.
First of all, Javi, you know, I'm no stranger to what you do.
Yeah.
And some of the best youth programs that I've ever participated in,
Yeah.
whether it's a play or activities, you know, it's a blessing what you do with Pastor Raymond at the
Yeah.
church, as well as in Little Woods. You know, Ernest, that's your life. You've dedicated your life to this. So what's happening with the positive results is a reflection of what you've always tried to do. And let me say, you know, one of the reasons why I participate with your grandson and go to programs like that, so I don't have to guess. You know, I think too often, you know, we guess about what programs are based on what somebody says, or a political article, or some politics. But your grandson is part of our future. Your son is part of our future. So when you're out there with them, you know, when you understand what they're doing and what programs like this are doing, then you understand the value. And the value is tremendous.
Yeah.
Because those kids are supposed to look, I'm an old man with young children. You know, my kids are supposed to be able to walk the street knowing that they're protected by your kids, no matter what they did before,
Right.
but based on what they're doing now. So how to keep doing what you're doing, we're gonna keep participating, keep doing what you guys are doing. And Ernest, thank you for what you always done.
Right.
Thank you, Councilmember Morrell.
Thank you. Thank you. There was no way, I know this is not about Mr. Johnson, but there was no way we were gonna have a conversation about Ubuntu without pulling you down, Mr. Johnson.
Right.
That was just not gonna happen. I want to start by saying we completely hear and understand what you're saying about funding. The whole reason why we created the New Orleans City Council Fund, which we're doing the finishing touches on today, is to provide a direct and transparent way for organizations like Ubuntu to apply for funding, to get funding directly. What we found in the city, us new council members who just got here, is that sometimes it is very difficult to find out what resources are available to both old and new programs that are proven programs that are doing good in the community. And it has become so difficult to obtain that funding that you have organizations that are all doing good work who basically have to fight each other for the limited dollars that are available. So that the finish touches will be done today. We're working with the Grand New Orleans Foundation to get the paperwork put in order, but we should be able to take applications as early as November or December to get access and money out to organizations that are doing good work directly and quickly.
Thank you.
I also want to comment on something I think y'all have addressed, but I think you have to reiterate to the public all the time. Whenever crime is high, there's always an interest, usually near the end, by private entities to try and fund things like NORD. You saw in the 90s when Pennington was here, they gave NORD all this money. And what no one talks about is that when crime goes down, they take all the money back. And all the gains you make for investing with young people, all the return you see, that is a constant. You can't fund these things only when things are bad. You have to fund them all the time and consistently, because when you take those resources away, when those programs die, the need is still there. It's just the programming's not. So I think part of what we have to solve going forward as we try to figure out what we're going to do with crime, to the point y'all have made, is that these programs are part of how we deal with the crime problem. And establishing reoccurring and reliable streams of money to fund these programs constantly has to happen for once. Because like I said, right now, when you see all these groups pop up saying, I want to give money to this, I want to give money to that, that's not forever. That's for when the pressure is on them, because crime is high, and we have to keep those resources there constantly. I know I'm preaching to the choir, Mr. Johnson. I just wanted to make sure that everybody knows that we're listening, and we look forward to working with y'all. I look forward to y'all applying, because we want to make sure y'all have resources.
Yes, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Councilmember Teresa.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Of course, good to see you. Ms. Cooper, though, I just want to let you know, like, what you said really touched me. I mean, everybody, their comments, but I think too many times we think there's nameless, faceless people who commit crime.
Yeah.
And the fact that you talk about, I'm doing everything that I can and it's still not working, I think it gets lost in the shuffle. And you also touched on something that to me is really important, that I feel like we get lost in chambers and in life in getting into these bubbles. Right, where that people live in their bubbles, number one, and then number two, because you live in your bubble, you start repeating what you hear in that bubble, and that a lot of time leads us into an us versus them conversation, number one, and then number two, it leads us into a well this or that.
Yeah,
and so many issues are really and you're not going to do well locking everybody up.
No.
And you're not going to say everybody ought to be out of prison too. So where's the and part of this? Right now, what I worry about is we focus so much on putting our resources on police because crime is high that we forget, as Councilmember Morrell and Councilmember Thomas and Harris, all of us are saying, the front part. That's the and, so making sure that we're doing something here. So I've said this, my colleagues are going to get tired of me saying this, but I'm going to keep on repeating it. Jefferson Parish, which is more conservative, allegedly, than Orleans, spends $15 million a year on juvenile probation, parole, and diversion. So exactly what you were talking about spending money early on, particularly before you get into criminal justice system or right at the very beginning of the criminal justice system. We spend one.
Yeah.
We spend one. You want better results? You got to spend more money on getting to the results that you want. I think to part of that, two things, and then I'll close, Councilmember Harris. Number one is, to me, you can get people to do things when you both have an element of what's right and a social equity part of it, but then to other people convincing them that their money will be well spent or there's good returns. When you can show people that you're helping children out and that they're contributing more to the community, that you're going to have crime go down, that they have higher paying jobs as a result, then you can do almost anything. So one of the things I want to focus on, as Councilmember Morrell is talking about with this budget, is as we're looking at having a budget surplus this year, as we're looking at having ARP, as we're looking at an increase as a result of our revenues, what are we doing for NORD? What are we doing to really branch out and increase the juvenile probation, parole, diversion? By the way, the DA is on board with making sure that we're providing more resources to that and is working with us. And so how do we take the existing resources that we have now, particularly coming out of COVID and the pandemic, and making sure we're helping as many people as possible? Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Councilmember Kane.
Thank you, Councilmember Harris. Johnson, thank you for all your work with Ubuntu Village. Ladies, thank you for all that all that you do. And you're right, NORD needs to be funded a whole lot more. I'm a product of NORD. It kept me busy on the weekends, it kept me busy after school, my siblings. My father coach, he just started coaching again at Cutoff Park. So, he just retired, so he's back back with NORD. And as the council representative on the NORD commission, that's one of my goals, to make sure that NORD is funded properly and to make sure that our kids have safe places to go on the weekends and after school. And I want to thank Councilmember Morrell, we'll get into a little bit later, for spearheading the efforts to have the council give money directly to the neighborhood groups that's working. It's already doing so much of the work that you are also doing. That was one thing I stated on the council, on the campaign. You know, whoever's the mayor, once he or she leaves, so does their idea, and so does the funding with that idea, and the vacuum is left. Another mayor comes in and you have to start the momentum all over again. So we can directly give money to the organizations that was here before the mayors. It's going to be here after the mayors, and after us, who will be here for a while. Like you all, that'll be a great start and great idea. We'll get to that later. But again, I want to thank Councilman Morrell for really making that a reality. And Mr. Johnson, you said something that I think is too often overlooked in this city. We need to stop losing our young Black men. Now, earlier today, there are students from 35, McMahon, and Carr. They sat right where you all are sitting, and they say they have all lost a classmate to gun violence. And all those students were young Black men. 35 just had to bury a student last week, and they used the school for the repast. I spoke to Mr. Jamar McNeely, the CEO of Inspire, and he said he's just tired of using his school as a place for a repast. Actually, someone said to him, I've never seen this part of, talking about Carr, I've never seen this part of the campus. I've only seen the funeral side, because that's all they know, this visitor, the school to be used for repasts and funerals. I was made aware of a young male who had to have emergency surgery because he was shot in the chest, and the wound became infected. This was last night. So thank God that he pulled through. But we have to stop losing our young Black men. I kind of feel like we're an endangered species because we lose so many, whether it's a crime, as victims of crime or perpetrators of crime. So I want to do whatever I can to help, not just Ubuntu Village, but every group, every person out there, to stop this senseless violence and to help put it into the cycle of violence. So I just want to say thank you, all that you're doing, that you have done, and will continue to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Green.
I also want to thank you all, Ubuntu Village, and also those who are supportive of the work that you do, who participate in it. There are some programs that work very well in our city, and there are programs where there is direct communication. For example, I'm a mentor with the Silverback Society, and I know in talking to some of the boys that we've been able to make a difference going into the classrooms, talking to them, letting them know that the world is available to them if they take advantage of some of the opportunities, but there's always someone to help, and we help in that regard. But I have more of a technical comment in addition to the thanks to you all. The budget process begins shortly. The way it works with the city council is that we consider the budget that has been submitted to us by the mayor. We have 30 days to consider that. One day we may go to the city charter to try to change that. I want to encourage you all to share your ideas, comments, proposed budgets with the mayor's office right now, before the process begins in the very near future. We as a council consider that according to city charter. We can make amendments, and we will make amendments because we've heard some of the concerns, but some members of the mayor's office are watching us right now. And they know that we have a commitment based on the creation of our youth fund, that we want to see monies go directly into community-based organizations that make a difference. So I'm going to ask your assistance in some regard as a council member to help put on the pressure so that it comes to us upfront. And we'll have that 30 days to consider it. And we're going to be working under Councilmember DeRusso's leadership and the leadership of our council very hard to make sure that some of the things that maybe have been in the budget in the past or are not in the budget that need to be there are considered. This is the first budget of the new council, if you will, the 2022 council. We're open to considering a variety of changes that make resources available where they can help our community. I focused a lot on blight reduction and on removal of illegal dumps and things like that. That also takes into account quality of life issues. We recognize that enhancing the quality of life involves working with our youth more closely than we've done. So I just want to ask for your assistance there so that when that proposal comes from the administration, it can at least be said that there's been some consideration of Ubuntu's ideas and of other ideas that can help us to get money directly to the organizations that work in our community. So once again, I thank you all for your work, and the future is much brighter in our city because we have people like you who are putting the pressure on and who are actually doing the work. Thank you very much.
Council President.
Thank you, Councilmember Harris. Good afternoon, and it's great to see all of you. Mr. Johnson, thank you so much for all the work that you do. You all have made some really excellent points. You talked about the constant emphasis on policing. And if you recently saw, there's a public safety proposal put forward of $80 million. $80 million with none of it going to any type of youth services, nothing like that. It was all just for police. And that's why this council has really focused in on, what are the additional youth services? What are the additional cultural services that need to be uplifted and funded? And that's why Councilmember Morrell has put forth the Culture and Recreation Fund, as he has discussed, and that's $7 million. $7 million of monies that organizations in the community can apply for. But this council also today is taking another, what I think is an important step in helping to fund the Carver Stadium and Community Complex, offering $1 million toward that particular project so that stadium can be a catalyst for the community, for all public school children to be able to utilize, for NORD to be able to utilize, and we're hoping to be able to get the final finances of that so that we can break ground in 2023. I think another important piece too is that, and I think Councilmember Thomas is the one who mentioned this, that so often governments decide to create different programs that within the walls of government they think are what's really needed. And whether it's an article, as he mentioned, that's read in the newspaper, whether it's kind of just politically what they believe is the right thing to move forward with. But these programs that government creates sometimes are not what's working. And sometimes they do get it right though, but they can be significantly underfunded. So what this city council is moving forward with is an audit of the publicly funded government programs that are available for at-risk youth so that we can determine which are working and which may not be working and need to move in a different direction, which are funded correctly and which are significantly underfunded. Ma'am, you talked about the Pathways program. What if we really could amplify that? What if we could really give it the funding that it needs? And so that audit is moving forward as we speak as well. So once again, just thank you all so much for the continued work that you do. And yes, as you know, we do want to work with you and just always continue to stay in touch. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President. We have one public comment and then I want to wrap up with a few words so you all aren't sitting there forever. Mr. Chewy.
As always, my name is Albert Truett Clark. I'm always here representing three groups. One of them is Neighbor Jude. One of them is Marriage Mobilization, Racism in the Government Everywhere. Other is POCC Prison Conscious Committee. Again, need we say in our community, our young people understand racism clearly, They understand that, that white folks and white folks Negroes are one and the same. They understand that white folks and white folks Negroes are one and the same. Last Thursday, young black man came before you all in reference to school business. Y'all remember that? Y'all remember that? Ms. Harris, do you remember? All right, there you go. And the rest of the folks who was on there, on the council, it was in the meeting, that shot him down. And the folks through the first callers came here in reference to the blue bikes. And they were telling this young guy, telling him that, hey, you can't operate the business here in the city of New Orleans, because you ain't got a place to put your bikes or put your scooters in, during the non-working hours, And so, you remember, you ever heard the saying, you give a man a fish and you feed him for a day? That's what y'all trying to do now. These folks, give them something. Teach them how to fish and you feed them for a lifetime. Huh? The young guy was here trying to do a legitimate business, young man by himself. And it was packed with white folks was opposing him. And the black folks on this particular board, they opposed him too. Y'all remember that? And Council Giroux, I'm still waiting for that trash, Been in front of my door for 2 months now. 2 months. If it was a white community, it'd be totally different. Y'all ever heard of racism? Huh? I thought Oliver talked about it once about 2 months ago about how the difference you can go in the black community and do something illegal. You go in white folks, horse of a different color.
Thank you, Mr. Chewy. I want to follow up some comments. Council President Moreno, Council Vice President Morel, we're talking about investment in people and programs. Something that we've been focusing on as well is investment in infrastructure. A.L. Davis Park, historic A.L. Davis Park is a mess.
Yeah.
Is a mess.
Yes.
The Keller Center has not been open since Ida, and we're trying to get it open so people like the Keller Foundation and Bridesha can have their programs in a community center that is central to the community. Council President Moreno has a blight ordinance that she's introducing today about city-owned properties that could be repurposed theoretically into additional community centers and community space. And so this council in our time here needs to focus not only on people, which is so important, and the programs that are going to be lasting, but as Council Member King said, also infrastructure that is critical to supporting community programs so our young people have places to go, places to play, and understand the history of places like A.L. Davis Park. So I just want to thank you. We have some proclamations and would love to take some pictures, Mr. Johnson. I just want to thank you so much for the opportunity to hear from you and what you need. And let's just continue this conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Councilman Harris, I would just like to comment and say that because of disappointment in government multiple times throughout historically, and because of oppression systems and systemic systems, that is exactly what we are building. We want some infrastructure to exemplify the village in a way that, and so that it don't be a finger pointing, that you can come to the village and actually see what we're doing around the specific issues that we have spoken about. So we'll be revisiting you all in the near future to allow that vision to become fruition, okay? Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. He's doing good. You gave me a car? You have another one? About your son. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
What's up, man?
Okay, I will.
Everyone center. All right, everyone, switch. Or like model. Yeah, give it. I'm gonna try to take some more time. All right, squish more.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah. There you go. Everybody stands still. I think I got some. It's cute.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. I'll proclamation. Go from here. So I gotta give me a frame for this.
All right, Madam Clerk, will you read the next item?
We're now going to go to page 59. At the bottom of the page, we have Resolution R 22-446 by Councilmember Morrell, recognizing October as National LGBT History Month.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We are having a presentation by Mr. Frank Perez to educate us on LGBT History Month and to try to provide a more local flair on what we should be proud of, what we should know about the city of New Orleans. Mr. Perez, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Is somebody going to load the presentation?
Someone will be there to assist you shortly.
Okay. I guess I can start by just introducing myself. My name is Frank Perez. I serve as the Executive Director of the LGBT Plus Archives Project. And I really appreciate the fact that you're taking this up today because I think most people will agree that New Orleans has a fascinating history. But what's ironic is that not everybody knows all of that history. In fact, a significant portion of that history remains in the closet. And the reason it remains in the closet is that because for so long, being LGBTQ was not something people wanted to document. To do so, to identify as LGBTQ could get you fired, could get you arrested, could get you evicted, could get you put in a mental institution. And so for good reason, a lot of people did not want to document that history. So I have been on a crusade for the last several years to recover some of that history. And I appreciate what you're doing today because by the city acknowledging that history, you are providing a small measure of healing for some of the lingering wounds that the city has inflicted on our community. The contributions of the LGBT community permeate every aspect of our city's culture and history. And I'll just mention a few examples here. Here's a picture of the Cabildo in Jackson Square. This body in 1895 authorized the destruction of the Cabildo. And it was gay men who led the preservation efforts of not only that historic building, but also the French Quarter in general. In fact, you might not have a French Quarter today if it weren't for gay men 100 years ago. You also have a picture here of Tony Jackson, who was an early pioneer in jazz, actually mentored Jelly Roll Morton and other jazz early legends. We've also contributed to our Carnival and Mardi Gras traditions with the crew of Yuga, which was founded in 1958. We've also made contributions in literature and art. Here we have pictures of Tennessee Williams and George DeRoe. And on the right, legendary entertainer Patsy Vidalia, who hosted the shows at the Dewdrop Inn for many, many years. We've also contributed to our business community. Here we have a picture of Clay Shaw, whose business acumen was unfortunately eclipsed by his notoriety in the JFK assassination trial. You all know about Southern Decadence, which has an annual economic impact of over $300 million. And we also have a long history of politics and activism. I could spend 2 or 3 hours on each one of these topics, but I know I only have a few minutes, so I'd like to focus on activism. Pictured here is Carl Schlegel, who was an early advocate for the decriminalization of homosexuality in the early 1900s, 60 some odd years before Stonewall. He was a German immigrant and a Presbyterian minister who was defrocked and run out of town. But one of the earliest advocates in the US for LGBT rights was from New Orleans. By the 1950s, when tourism was really coming into its own as an industry, the city decided that queer visibility would scare off tourist dollars, which is why the police superintendent in 1955 publicly declared
Homosexuals are the city's #1 vice problem. They're the ones we want to get rid of most. 1958, a few years later, Mayor Chet Morrison appoints a committee on the problem of sex deviants who recommended that the city adopt, and I quote from their report, a climate of hostility toward homosexuals. Think about this. How amazing is it for a city to go on record and say, we don't want to see you, and we certainly don't want to hear from you. That's a wound that's inflicted on a community. This committee began to persecute various bars throughout the French Quarter. Excuse me for the cough. Pictured here is Tony Pacino's at the corner of Bourbon Street and Toulouse, raided multiple times in the summer of 1958. This atmosphere of hostility eventually led to violence and the horrific gay-bashing murder of Fernando Rios in Pirates Alley in the French Quarter, also in 1958. The Crew of Yuga, the first gay carnival club, was raided by the police at their annual ball in 1962. There's a wonderful story of one of the queens jumping through a window and to escape the police and climbing up into a tree to avoid being arrested, but she was given away when the police spotlight shone in the trees, and her diamonds and her tiara and the sequins on her dress gave her away. But that was the end of the Crew of Yuga, but there were other gay carnival crews. You already know about the Upstairs Lounge fire, and you took up this resolution a couple of months ago. I'll just remind you, deadliest fire on record in New Orleans history. The city really didn't give a damn at the time. No officials had anything to say about it. Shortly after the fire in the early to mid 70s, when second wave feminism was sweeping through Louisiana, many of the feminist activists from New Orleans were lesbians, which wasn't necessarily the case in the rest of the state. You may remember Anita Bryant. She was the spokesperson for the Florida Citrus Commission, also a former beauty queen and popular singer who led a Save Our Children campaign in the 1970s from homosexuals. She had a Miami-Dade ordinance overturned that had afforded protections. She came to New Orleans in 77. The gay community organized a huge protest against her in Jackson Square, which was the first major demonstration on behalf of gay rights. In 1980, LAGPAC was formed, which was a political action group. Several years later, the Forum for Equality was founded. LAGPAC is no longer still around, but I'm sure you're all familiar with the Forum for Equality. 1991, this council passed a non-discrimination ordinance. It had failed to pass in 1984, failed to pass in 1986, but it did pass in 1991, and I've listed the people that voted yay and nay. So trans protections were not included in that ordinance, but they were eventually adopted in 1995 when the Home Rule Charter was amended. The people you see here on the screen are Stuart Butler and Courtney Sharp, two early trans advocates. They contacted a gentleman by the name of Rip Nakan, who published one of the city's two gay newspapers, and said, we've got to get trans protections written into the ordinance. And 95 was when the Home Rule Charter was amended, and the big controversy at that time was the authorization of charter schools. Rip Nakan and Stewart met with Troy Carter, who had just been elected to the city council at that time, and Roy Glopion, and they all agreed that since everybody was focused on the school charter thing, they could just do a quiet, under the radar inclusion of gender identity, and they did, and that's so gender rights were included. Stewart and Courtney Sharp also led the local PFLAG chapter in New Orleans, which is Parents and Friends of Lesbians and Gays, to include transgender people in their mission statement. New Orleans was the first city to do that, and the New Orleans chapter led the national organization to do that in 1998. And New Orleans played a major role in that. They were the first national LGBT organization to include trans people in their mission statement. I'm I will just wrap up by pointing out that Bienville, the founder of our fair city, lived well into his 80s and never married. Just saying. So this is a very brief history. I do an entire walking tour on all of these issues, and I would personally like to invite each and every one of you to come take that tour at your leisure. It's a walking tour through the French Quarter, and I would invite you to familiarize yourself with the LGBT plus Archives Project of Louisiana, which is a nonprofit that works very hard to preserve our local queer history. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Frank. Mr. Green, would you like to speak real quick?
I just wanted to thank you for your presentation. It's just, this month is a reminder of the importance that we must place as a society on recognizing and respecting the rights of all of our citizens. And the very fact that you have made this presentation and have shown us the history shows us how far that we have to go. Of course, we've come some distance, and I'm appreciative of activism that has made that happen. But I hope that all citizens and all people will recognize that we have a diverse culture, we have a diverse group of people in humanity, and that we must respect the rights of others to engage in their lives the way they wish to do so. Thank you.
Mr. Burnside, you want to make a comment?
My name is Michael Eric Burnside. I live at 2215 Felicity. I'd like to thank Mr. Perez. We don't know each other personally, but I've seen him a couple times at gay events, and it's always good to know that somebody cares about our history. As a gay man in the United States Army in the early 1980s, we were still subject to dishonorable discharges, which of course would allow you to not have veterans health benefits. It would also not allow you to go to college on the GI Bill, and it would mark you as dishonorable in the eyes of any potential future employer. So nobody in the right mind wanted to be gay, and a lot of gay people killed themselves. But I want to thank Frank for trying to make being gay, if not honorable, at least a realistic part of the human condition that's always been here. And I appreciate the grounding in history. Thank you very much, sir.
Mr. Perez, I want to thank you, but Council President, Vice President Morrell, I want to thank you for bringing this to the forefront. I think we probably all want to add our names to it. So I just want to make that notation.
Madam Clerk, at the appropriate time, can we add everyone's names to the motion?
Can only add who is present.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm back.
Mr. Perez, sorry, my allergies are acting up today. I really appreciate your constant advocacy on behalf of the LGBTQIA+ community. I do think that as much as New Orleans has become internationally renowned as someplace that is a welcoming, inclusive community, I think it is as important to remind the people here that it was not always so. Because what we see nationally is that when you allow any community to kind of quietly rewrite history, to forget the awful things that have happened and been done to a community in a city, it makes it that much more likely that over time, that kind of bad behavior can resurge. I know that we spoke frequently during Southern Decadence this year. There were a tremendous amount of issues during Southern Decadence this year. There were some really troubling issues with how the parade was shortened. There was, in my opinion, a tremendous influx of resources to a football game that happened to be here, and not the resources given to our community that's here every single year promoting the city and promoting a very significant part of our community. And I just want to let you know publicly, we're still digging and getting to the bottom of that, because that will never happen again. And it really, I know, speaking for my staff, we were very, very, very upset with the fact that it seemed to be prioritization was given to a visiting event and not to the event that has been here annually, year after year, celebrating our city, celebrating parts of our community, celebrating our culture. And it speaks to a larger problem in this city, which is that we neglect the people and the communities that are here in favor of the tourists that visit occasionally.
I'm so glad that you said that because the Southern Decadence officials have not yet received a bill from NOPD. And estimates are anywhere from $5,000 to $8,000. I don't understand why they're charging us at all, considering the amount of money that it brings. But it's an hour and a half parade, but they charge us for the whole weekend.
Well, and just to add to that, I think it was very troubling to me that when you have a group that does the same parade every year, that was finally able to have a real parade after COVID, that the communication was so poor. You were being told literally at the last minute, well, the parade's going to go here, the parade's not going to go there. And I can't even tell you how it ended. I remember that last conversation I had regarding this issue, they had truncated the parade so it wouldn't go past one of the more iconic bars that had not seen a parade in several years. And I could not get a clear communication from NOPD why they kept changing their. They just kept saying, we don't have the resources. And I was like, we have the resources to go to the Superdome. And the difference between the Southern Decadence Parade versus the Superdome is the Superdome state property. We can use assets like the state police to supplement NOPD. At the Superdome, we need NOPD to be in the French Quarter for a parade of that magnitude. We need NOPD to be present in support of a community that is one of the many communities that feels like they are often neglected and overlooked by NOPD. And I really felt like it was a missed opportunity because when you have something that happens annually from a community that comes here every year, both people who live here and visit here, and develop that relationship, when you have a bad experience like that, it just reminds you of the fact that people are not often viewed as first-class citizens. They're sometimes treated like second class. So your presentation today was so on point because we need to constantly remind people everyone needs to be treated civilly and equally at all times.
And not overcharged.
And not overcharged. You're right. I'm not mitigating the fact, yes, we're going to look into that as well, Mr.
Well, I'd just be curious to know what other annual parades pay for police protection or details during their parades. Because it seems like we get charged out the wazoo every year and never get what we're paying for.
Well, I think, like I said, especially in this instance where your parade route was abruptly shortened at the last minute, what account was taken of the fact that the parade relied upon going a certain route and for no logistical reason, it was largely just chopped.
And the price go up.
Yep.
So,
okay. Does anyone else have any comments? Madam Clerk, do we suspend the rules to add those names, or can you do that on your own?
I do that on my own.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. That's all I have. I will move that we adopt the resolution. Mr. Jeruso seconds. Please vote your machines. 6 yeas, no nays. The resolution is adopted. Thank you, Mr. Perez.
Thank you.
Members of the council, I'd like to move at this time to amend the agenda of today's meeting to allow for up to 15 minutes of presentation by residents of and representatives of Gordon Plaza, the Gordon Plaza community. The reason I do it that way is because, of course, we have a publicly advertised agenda and citizens will always, I move to suspend the agenda to allow for up to 15 minutes of comment. Is there a second? All right, it has to be voted on. It has to be unanimously voted in favor. All in favor, please signify so by saying aye. We have 6 votes, yay. So the agenda is suspended. The line item again is presentation by representatives of and residents of Gordon Plaza with a 15-minute presentation time allowed. Thank you. Do we have representatives who would like to turn in a card, or if we have if we have a number of people who like to speak, I can determine if we would have 2 or 3 minutes for each presentation. How many people would like to speak? You turned in a card, but only one card? You gonna make 2? Okay, then we're gonna be fine with 3 minutes each from those presenters.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Councilman Green.
Ms. Hurst, we're gonna do up to 3 minutes each person.
Okay, I had a lot to say. However, you know, we've been here for the last almost 2 years now, either monthly or weekly, to try to get this resolved. We were supposed to be here today. We are here today because it was stated on October the 6th, we will have some answers and some resolutions. However, I don't see that on the agenda anywhere. We have been fighting and we will continue to fight. On yesterday, in our neighborhood, at 2 o'clock in the morning on one of the streets, the street broke open, a large sinkhole with water everywhere. The residents on that street was terrified because they kept calling and got no results until 6 o'clock yesterday morning. So we don't know, they didn't know whether they was going to eventually get to the sidewalk and the houses was going to sink in, fall in. But anyway, most important, I'm skipping most of the things I was gonna say because we have heard rumors as of this morning and then got an email from City Attorney Denisha Turner that first it was 2 or 3 residents have agreed to a buyout. Today, she's saying 12 to 13 residents have agreed to a buyout for $300 and some thousand. Now, this is very disturbing, extremely disturbing, because that's not what we were here for today. So what has happened behind the scenes that the residents of Garden Plaza know nothing about? Councilman Green, maybe you can address some of this. I have a question for you. Do you have a real estate a company?
Yes, I do.
Do you have a resident in Garden Plaza that is part of that you're representing? That's part of your real estate company that you have as a client?
Have to be careful with that wording. I have an owner whose property is managed by Nationwide Real Estate.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for redirecting. That is my question.
Okay.
I'm very disturbed now, so I'm glad you clarified that because it's quite interesting. 12 to 13 people may be empty lots, your client, whoever. But how could somebody verbally say that they've accepted? Who's making these calls? Who's directing these people to agree to a buyout? And when the board and the members who come here frequently, who are living there and need money to move out, are offering people a lesser amount of money. I think this is a disrespect and disgraceful. And you're talking about racism at its best, and especially when our own elected Black officials are showing us the racism. I have nothing else to say because I am very frustrated.
Thank you.
Thank you. We came here today because there was a process that was supposed to be in place in the name of transparency. There was supposed to be a deadline of September 29th by which a methodology was supposed to be shared after the appraiser, Jim Thorne, met with the analysis team that produced the report in regards to the replacement costs. There have been no updates about what is the outcome of those discussions, report backs, or conclusions. And so because people are talking hearsay now, and we already know this is how the city of New Orleans works, that at the end of the day, all report backs and conversations were supposed to happen with the community prior to any methodology being utilized with people in the community. In an effort to communicate no report and next steps, the residents requested a meeting prior to this date, so we didn't have to come in here again, listening to things from scratch. So our request is, if anyone in the council has information and can share publicly, that would be helpful. And if you can't, call the people from the administration down to answer these questions, because they were here earlier today, left the room to make phone calls about people who are still in the room. So I'm gonna just start with you, Councilman Green. What can you answer today about what has transpired since September 29th? And I'm gonna ask you, audience, I'm gonna ask you, fellow residents, for your patience right now, because they're gonna try to rush the hell out of us, even though we've been coming here consistently every other week for the past 2 years.
Ms. Kinlaw,
Yes.
I would like to respond.
Please.
I want to make it clear. We have 15 minutes for the presentation. If we need to have a follow-up meeting, that's fine. But let me.
We're not having a follow-up meeting.
Let me tell you part of the reason that
from you right now.
Let me tell you
about
part of
what's
the
been
reason.
happening.
Let me tell you part of the reason that I'm not familiar. Because as a District D councilman who has been here from the beginning, meetings took place where I was not invited, in fact, uninvited. So let me make clear what I have heard.
Keep talking.
Only rumors. However, I do know this, that correspondence was sent to every resident of Gordon Plaza, giving them the option to contact the appraiser. Some have chosen to exercise as citizens their rights to contact the appraiser. No decisions have been made relative to buyouts that I'm aware of. I have received no correspondence. I do know that it's possible that someone will decide that they will accept that value. However, citizens are free to contact the appraiser, as was done in the correspondence. So you asked me a question, I don't have that answer, but I do have an answer that I wasn't included in some meetings that took place on the second floor.
Let's talk about it. Thank you for your patience, everybody, because I know, just like us, coming here every other week for the past 2 years, you've come here to be somewhere on the agenda and you want to move forward. So we understand that and respect that. Trust that we respect that. You are one of the council people who voted the very last time we were in this meeting as a council meeting. The purpose of that vote, there were 7 votes up there, was because how it was handled prior to what you're talking about was not right. That was the purpose of that vote. So everything you just named,
The purpose of that vote was to also set a meeting which took place.
I'll let you finish, let me finish, because you're going to try to say I burnt up the 15 minutes. And we're going to have to go past it a little bit, because this has been years. This is one day you're going to listen to us.
Ms. Kendall,
I'm going to say again, just hear me out. Hear me out. As a council person, just listen for a minute. Just listen. This is, you keep talking about meetings that have transpired. This is why, right here. This is why, right here. I'm talking to every council person, by the way, but I'm addressing you because you're District D. So just hear me out. The purpose of the last meeting on September 1st, that whole motion that was announced in this public place that you voted on, was because everything that happened prior to that day did not allow for transparency within the community. You were one of the people who prior to that went around saying something about, oh, it's not that bad. There's some people who don't want to leave. You sit here in this public space and said that. So what happens is when that kind of stuff gets out, it sends messages to people like, oh, they must be good. They must be taken care of. Everything must be moving in order. It's not an issue of decision and collective movement if the residents don't know about it. So let's talk about the hypothetical people who supposedly have been offered something. At the end of the day, the residents of Gordon Plaza have said time and time again that there have been 52 plus 54 households with occupancies in it. The 67 properties that the residents of Gordon Plaza have been fighting for from the end is because every single person, to include the rent, have been included in this conversation. So when the 67 properties were represented, it's understandable that the people who live on the landfill have been fighting because they don't want to live on the landfill anymore and need the means. But guess what they did? They said, we're not going to throw anybody else to the wolves, not even the people who've been harmed, because they should be a part of this conversation too. They're still property owners. But for somebody to make a decision that the people who are not necessarily actively in the space, and you know this, thank you for acknowledging the property that you property manage in Gordon Plaza, which we don't understand, that at the end of the day, of course, somebody who owns a property, who lives nowhere near Gordon Plaza, would joyfully pick up the motherfucking phone and answer you if it's even true. So I'm gonna say one more time to this council, the back and forth that goes on between the administration, the council, the people, unless the residents of Gordon Plaza have been a part of the conversation proactively, then there should be no assumption that any decision has been made, because you've been hearing consistently from the same people every step of the way. This is the bullshit we patiently sat through for the last 4 hours, listening to talk about peace. There's no peace here. Talking about breast cancer. The survivors are right here. Talking about all of the things around safety. There's a sinkhole that anybody's house could fall into at any moment. And it'll be the city of New Orleans' responsibility once again when this could have already been handled. So whatever it is you're talking about, Councilperson Green, the reason I'm addressing you is because a council person who ran for office, and I'm speaking to everybody, who ran for office, sounding the alarm about Gordon Plaza, all of a sudden you don't know this, that, and the other, that's a problem. And if you would listen sometimes,
Okay.
and proactively engage people, not from the sideline, not up under the table, not on the side, we would understand why people would speak all the time. You've been invited to multiple meetings, to include the one you voted in favor of this motion, and all of a sudden you don't remember. People's lives.
I absolutely remember the motion, and that is
Saying that there was a decision before because people were mailed notifications to call. The residents came in here and said, the letters came, ain't nobody touching a letter because ain't nobody seen a methodology yet. This is how devaluation and discriminatory practices surface their heads every time.
Ms. Kinlaw,
I know you want your
Ms.
meeting.
Kinlaw, I do appreciate it. I'd like to give, I'd like to hear from Mr. Derek Hempel. Mr. Hempel, please come forward. 3 minutes, please.
I'm gonna ask where the members of the administration are. Yes, I do.
We don't see minutes.
Where are the members of the administration?
I can't control the members of the administration being present.
Right now, where are they? We have spent 4 hours sitting here patiently. Because see, you guys say we come up in here and act up. They'll call the police twice. If this is not a reason to take action today, I don't know what is. Because everything else we talked about today, we're all up and through Gordon Plaza. And we still don't know when we get back there that somebody's front door is going to be in the street by the time we get back. So once again, the last time we were in here for a formal meeting, not even the action that had to be taken because no action was being taken, Gilbert Montano sat right there and said, we're going to have to get it together because we're all over the place. Y'all always all over the place. If the money's been fought for, it's been allocated and approved, it's sitting in Liberty Bay collecting interest, what is the motherfucking problem? Tell us what the problem is. What is the problem? If the mayor doesn't want to pay, tell us that. If y'all don't want to move, tell us that. But we have to get some kind of answer so we can figure out what has to happen next.
Okay.
And you're not going to rush us out of here.
Thank you, Ms.
We don't
Kinlaw.
get an answer.
Thank you, Ms. Kinlaw. Can we hear from Mr. Hempel and then Mr.
Mr.
Burnside?
Hempel, see, that's what I mean you don't listen. Mr. Hempel just gave me his 3
No,
minutes.
that's not legal. You can't just give.
You're not going to talk to me about legal today.
Well, you can't do it. You can call it. Come on, Ms. Kinlaw.
No, you come on.
Come on, man. Okay, I see Mr. Hempfield there. Mr. Hempfield, do you wish to speak?
Doing what's right.
Mr. Hempfield, do you wish to speak?
If she has a point to make, I want her to use my time to make a point. Now.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, look, we suspended the agenda to allow for 15 minutes. It's not on the agenda. Members of the public might have wanted to comment in favor. They don't have an opportunity because we haven't had it on the agenda. Okay, that's why we suspended the agenda to include it. Mr. Hempfield, if you don't wish to speak, then Mr. Burnside, Ms. Rainey, and Ms. Bates would speak.
And you
that
really
would
want to hear
conclude-
from Mr. Burnside, huh?
Because he's a member of the public.
Yeah, but we know what that's about.
Well, he's a member of the
All right,
public.
So we were here.
Mr. Hempfield, are you
we were-
speaking?
We were here at the city council chambers. And the last time we were all here, and a letter arrived in the mailboxes as the residents were sitting here. You are giving legitimacy to that letter when we agreed that by the folks on the board agreed that September 29th, that there was going to be a methodology in transparency, right? So that should have nullified the letter that was sent out by Jim Thorne because he's a part of this as well. I mean, you could say it doesn't, but it should have,
Well, but
because what we realized was the letter went out and it was no transparency.
Who sent the letter?
I guess Jim Thorne.
No.
I
I'm
don't
asking
know
you,
who
what I'm
sent
saying
the
to you is
letter.
that it wasn't Mr. Thorne who sent the letter.
Who sent the letter?
The administration, the city attorney.
That letter, sir,
You see what I'm saying?
Well, no,
has Jim Thorne's name and signature on the letter.
okay, but then I'm
But what you
referring to
bring up
one
is
that
a
the city
bigger
attorney
point.
did.
Because whatever Jim Thorne does, it's orchestrated by the administration. And
By
you know it.
the administration.
So
You
I
are correct.
appreciate the fact that you are showing us
By
today
the
the
administration.
conversations have been had with you
No,
about what the process is.
absolutely not. Now, let me make that clear. You haven't invited me to the meetings that you've had here, and there have been no conversations with me regarding the methodology.
That has transpired with the exception of the one for the motion that you voted on. That was all discussed in this public space, and you know it.
No, I'm
Because
talking,
when the motion
come on,
came up,
Angela. I think
voted
that you
in
know which
favor
meeting
of
that I'm
it.
talking about. That's fine. I
Here.
think you know which meetings that I'm talking
We
about.
can keep talking about whatever, but the question is, what is happening for the pathway forward? Because residents, once again, are still living on the landfill. All this other talk, it's smoke and mirrors when you have resources that have been allocated. See, all the people who come before have been fighting for money, fight for resources. What happens when you fight for the resources? And the resources are actually allocated, and
To add to
the resources are approved through city ordinance, which is supposed to be law,
yes, pass.
and the money sitting in the bank, collecting interest. Every 30 days that goes by, the interest is enough for 4 families to be relocated. We well past. Okay, so let's go there. Where is the outcome of the methodology? If there was no agreement by October 6th, there was supposed to be action taken on October 6th. And it's our understanding that if there was questions about the methodology or what got discussed, the people would come here from the administration and there would be questions that could be asked. So where are we with that? Yeah, hold on, because
Yeah, the administration is not here, so they'd have to be invited.
then call them down.
No, I'm not calling, I can't force them to come down. The bottom line, this wasn't
You
on the agenda.
prioritize what you want to prioritize.
Yes, Ms. Kinlaw.
That's what today is for, October 6th. We have the motion. We are supposed to be here. We were invited to come back here. We didn't come here to bust up the meeting. We sat here for 4 hours, waiting for, once again, the answer for the next step going forward. That's all we've ever wanted. People know good and goddamn well we ain't wrong.
So you want me to go to 60 minutes?
And this is how Black people get treated in New Orleans. No, we're gonna wait.
I have nothing else to say. I mean, I didn't have these meetings. I mean, I didn't.
So I'm gonna say these couple of things while they're figuring it out. Number one, and be ever so clear so nobody leaves with confusion. I want to say thank you to Fair Housing for being here. I want to say thank you to the National Fair Housing for the support, because we know y'all watching as well, and the support that you have given to move forward with this. We also understand that as a result of that conversation, for the last 10 months, we've been talking about how this replacement cost methodology could be used. Everybody knows it can be used. You all know it can be used. Denisha Turner knows it can be used. Jim Thorne knows how to use it. He has access to all the same tools. He can decide if he's going to use them or not. But anybody talking about some offers have been made, here's what we know. So listen carefully. Since the beginning, just so you're clear, renters have been a part of the conversation, but you wouldn't know it. Other people might not know it because there's steps along the process. Yeah, there's a handful of owners who have some property back there who should have never had to buy a house ever. Thank you for verifying that today, Councilman Green. But I do know these people sitting here and the ones that are at home because they can't physically come into this space, who are waiting for their fully funded access to their money so they can safely move into healthy homes of their choice. This was supposed to all be wrapped up by the end of the year. I'm talking about people being in their new homes, but you can't explore a new house, achieving a new house without actually having funds. Every single body in that community has been cared for. But everybody in here ain't been at all those meetings. We tried to create as much transparency as possible because we wanted to move forward. Because every other time when it's not,
Councilmember Green, do you
for some
mind if
reason,
I
it does not move.
speak?
May I have 1 minute to speak?
I would welcome your 1 minute.
Thank you. Clearly, from the last meeting that we had, a meeting was supposed to take place between the representative of Tulane and Jim Thorne.
That happened.
That happened. Is a
That's correct.
representative from Tulane here to report on that meeting? Is it, but no, Angela.
I'm going to answer your
Angela, see,
question.
you didn't give me that minute. It's a yes or no. You know, very honestly, there are sometimes yes or no's on this end. It's a yes or no.
Yes.
He is here?
They have been here and they're
I'm
watching
asking
online.
if that a meeting has taken
Are they
place since
physically
then.
in the room right now? No,
Is
they're
no.
not.
So
That's
therefore,
correct.
I can't get a determination of what happened in that meeting.
I have no problem calling those people right now.
Call
We're
them.
doing the same thing we've asked. It's been 4 hours we've been sitting here.
I know, Andrew,
That hasn't even been on the agenda.
but it wasn't on the agenda.
Here's the thing. I'm gonna just say this right now, because see, these are how seeds of confusion get caught. The people who were in that meeting made it very clear the outcomes, and they put it in writing and sent to y'all.
Which meeting? The Jim Thorne Tulane appraisal meeting? Yes. Okay, I recognize that took place and that we got an email, I think today.
So today's objective,
When did we get that?
be clear, because there's this kind of confusion. The whole purpose of this meeting, and even the Tulane people who have been here multiple times,
But not since they had a meeting with Mr. Thorne's.
because they weren't the people who were up to come here today, sir.
Who was up to come here today?
The administration,
I didn't have that on the agenda. We don't have it on the agenda.
Denisha Turner.
They'll come today. Okay, well, look, honestly, I defer.
All right.
So October 6th means nothing to the council.
So
That means
here's
nothing to the
here's
council.
what I suggest, and I'll say this: I learned for the first time of the rumors of the potential offers just today from the city attorney, and then obviously my chief of staff told me about the email that you all had received. So the council isn't really aware as to like
What
what's
email are you referring to?
about the email. I guess you all received some type of email from the city attorney. Is that incorrect information?
Let me clarify for everybody. Thank you for asking the question. When the analysis team left the meeting, they sent the outcomes of the meeting in terms of what they communicated, because that's what the meeting was about. The follow-up to that was to be able to say, hey, now that you've asked the analysis team questions for the 11th time, now that we hear from you directly with the appraiser in the room, decisions can be made about the methodology so that it could be presented before the people to make sure no non-devaluation and the discriminatory practices didn't have to be in question anymore. They were supposed to come here today and answer your questions about how they were going to proceed forward as a result of that. Because, and let me say this, the analysis team has been more than transparent from the beginning, has come here, gave multiple presentations, and been in these chambers for the past, since December 2021. There's no confusion about that. The city was saying, oh, we got to see if we can do this within the law. The answer is yes, and Denisha Turner knows it as well.
So I think, is there anyone here representing the mayor's team?
That's the question. That's the
Liz,
question.
are you here representing the mayor's team? Okay. All right. How about this, Liz? Can you please pass along the information that obviously, you know, there's council members along with the residents of Gordon Plaza who have many, many questions and feel like we're a bit in the dark here as to what is the very latest happening with the appraisal process. Because I'll say this, we got a long email from Mr. Cassius Peeler after he met with Mr. Thorns, which seemed like they had a good conversation, but then we didn't hear, at least I didn't, we didn't hear anything further from Mr. Thorns or Mr. Peeler about whether or not there was any type of agreement.
Correct. Because from the communication coming down before, Denisha Turner writes, and I quote, Mr. Green, given the unique nature of Gordon Plaza, Thorns agreed that it would be possible to incorporate the cost approach when coming to an appraised value. So if decisions have been made about next steps, we need to know what they are.
Yep.
Because guess what? Every day that goes by, people are twiddling their thumbs. But let me just say this. It's not just the days are going by and people are doing legitimate things that take time. Like if I say I gotta go to the restroom, it takes a literal time for me to get there and get back. Nobody's confused about that. But what's happening here is additional things are getting thrown out to extend it so that the council is in a situation where they're like, well, we only meet every other week. So if we have to take action on something, we can't do a thing. Here's the thing. We need answers to this today. And it only makes sense that the administration would honor the lives of the people enough to come down here and answer the questions.
Yeah.
Because if not, even though that was not a discussion with the residents, we know that there's money all around here. People should not be acting like this is their personal money. These are the people who've been paying taxes into a system that the land is killing the family members.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody doing anybody any favors in here. There's no gifts being given to the residents of Gordon Plaza.
Okay, I think Councilmember Green, I know that you can't force anyone to come down, but I think if you could try to make some contact with the city attorney to see if she can
Yes,
come
please.
down, that
Thank
would be helpful. In the meantime, though, because I do want to have a more robust discussion as to what's happening, because I feel a little bit in the dark here, is I'm looking at, what about, can I do Tuesday? Columbus Day is a holiday? I mean, Indigenous Peoples' Day, yeah.
I do want to say, with all due respect, the residents of Gordon Plaza did request that there be a meeting happening before the 6th, so we didn't have to end up here.
All free. All right. I need everybody to check their calendars because I do want to call another public meeting. I know
For those of you sitting here, again, this is how it goes. We go to another meeting.
I know, but Angela, you know, when we don't schedule something, then things
This
go.
was scheduled though, President.
Well, look.
With all due respect, this one right here was scheduled.
Yep. How about 1 o'clock on Wednesday? Monday's a holiday. Tuesday, we have committee meetings, but let's do Wednesday, 1 o'clock. In the meantime, Councilmember Green, if you could call the city attorney to come down as well.
We need a response to her response now, because see, this is how this goes.
How many times do we have to keep coming back?
That's a 12. That's a 12. That's a 12.
How
That's a
many
12.
times do we have to keep coming back?
Yep. Look, I get it.
How
Guys,
many
we do
times
have
do we
to,
have to keep
we
coming
do have
back?
to, let me move on with some of the agenda. He's going to call
I'm
Denisha
looking
Turner.
for him to make the call.
Can you make the call, Councilmember Green?
Yeah, I'll go to the office. I'll go to the office. But what do we want her to come down and do?
Answer their questions.
Call her
No,
so she can come down now.
no, now. Today is the 6th.
I get
Now.
Okay, so Councilmember Green, you're calling right now?
Now.
All right, Councilmember Green is calling. Hang on. Yeah, let me move on to a couple of agenda items while he calls. We'll continue to recircle back.
Because I respect you, President, I'm gonna just say this. We need to hear the outcome, because what'll happen is you'll move on, the phone will go down, and we'll still be here. We've been here since 10 a.m. waiting on something that was supposed to be on the agenda today. I promise you, this is me demonstrating patience right now. This is the residents demonstrating the ultimate patience right now.
Yes.
A death sentence for our life.
All this pretty language, take pictures. Word ain't working.
I think it's on the phone.
Right.
You gotta go up.
If Green spent more time defending us than his ego, he can his.
5890. All right.
Today.
Today, my God.
Show them the money they want today. The money they want today. Show them the money.
Okay, perfect.
Show them the money.
Yep. All right, y'all. We're trying to get a hold of someone with the city attorney's office. Angela, I really do need to move on. We're calling.
I'm gonna say this one thing, and then I'm gonna sit down.
Thank you.
When this,
Hang on. Hang on.
we're done. Don't worry about it.
Hey.
Don't worry about it.
Chris.
It is evident. It's evident. You're not the only one. We're good. We're good.
Chris,
We're good.
It's all right.
Let him leave on his own. Here's the thing. He's gonna come back and he's gonna say whatever he's gonna say. But at the end of the day, it still will not be resolved today. And that's a problem. Because for all of the talk about being engaged with your local government, being a part of the process, speaking out, not setting shit on fire, not breaking out windows, they always get on the protesters and criminalize the protesters. But you know who be causing all the harm, havoc, and violence? Because this is violent right here. The fact that after sitting here in this meeting, being dismissed, and the residents of Garden Plaza will go back not only to the toxic soil, but to the sinkhole, this shit is violent as hell.
Y'all word ain't worth shit. Y'all tell us stuff and then y'all go back on and keep throwing loopholes and everything around in circles. Always deceptive. But when you come up for re-election, I'm gonna remember all that. I know I am. Y'all gonna